Clapping his hands together, Orochimaru called forth a Dotten Earth Release Jutsu, Earth Wall Entrapment. Like the jutsu was named, two huge earthly formed walls flips up from both sides before sandwiching the Hulk. In between, the Genin's final view of their teammate was he being sandwiched before attempted to stop the two walls closing in on him. The giant had always been slow as he shown confusion why the walls came up, only to know it was too late to get out. With the giant out of the way, the Sannin didn't waste his time as he shoots and extended his head like a harpoon biting the last Uchiha, giving him the seal of heaven. He was admiring his work when a fist sudden shot out from his stone wall and grabbed his extended neck. Surprised by the sudden and unexpected attack, he turned around just in time to see the Hulk making his way out of his stone prison. The stone wall jutsu is one of the strongest elements for creating both a defense and imprisonment. Orochimaru could not understand how it can get out in just minutes. Unfortunately for the Sannin, he was immediately yanked and literally taken for a spin. Using his body as makeshift weight, the Hulk swung his body, hurling him across the field, slamming the Sannin's body down on rock-hard surface. Like he did with the snake, he pulled again before sending it to the other side. Sometimes he spins it a few times to add a little more force before bringing it down again. Protected by his tough, snake-scale armor, even Orochimaru couldn't handle the repeated abuse, and the Hulk isn't pulling any punches neither. It also seems that the giant will be letting go anytime neither. He will be mostly likely dishing out all his frustration, as well as anger for the Sannin's previous actions. Orochimaru couldn't do anything neither as his body was flung at Mach speed across the battlefield. It left him with only one last option he could do as he slowly returned back to his original self. Since his sling is gone, the Hulk was left holding the Sannin high by the neck as he debated what to do with his constantly changing toy. At that moment, Orochimaru suddenly opens his eyes and shot out his head. Only this time he spits out his kusanagi before stabbing the giant directly in its abdomen. At this range, it was near impossible for even veterans to dodge. The Hulk can only watch with disbelief as the blade enters his stomach as he slowly falls to his knees. His hand never let go of the Sannin, but Orochimaru can now stand on his own legs as she slowly retracts his head. Sakura was tending to Sasuke when this happened. She too had watched the fight, and too was surprised by it. The Hulk had taken many damages in the past, but never this fatal. At first she thought her teammate was finally fighting back, but then suddenly the Sannin turned the table. She was never this scared in her life, with both her teammates down. How is she going to get out this horrible and dangerous forest? Not to mention this deranged ninja, there is no telling what he would do next. Back to the Hulk, the legendary grass cutter sword Kusanagi is not only sharp, it is also very poisonous. What the Hulk experiencing are two simultaneous shocks to his system. One that a foreign metal cutting and entering his body, the other is the deadly poison that is attacking his immune system. Surprisingly, his fist remained clenched and still held on to the snake Sannin's neck. Orochimaru was not bothered by it. He continues to slowly retract his head, taking also back his kusanagi. All while staring back at the motionless giant, his expression was saying, "You dare to defy me? This will always be the result." What the Sannin could not tolerate are disobedient subjects. Alive or dead, they all have its uses, so Orochimaru would not think twice to discard any of his test subjects. Either way, the giant would have been dissected anyway, so it was no big loss to him. It has always been the conventional way in uncovering secrets, such as bloodlines and their secrets, they were uncovered the same way. Hence, why hunternins always destroy the bodies to protect them from other villages in finding out their secrets. He was ready to leave when he senses Anko getting close. The giant he can leave here, his subordinates can later bring him the body. As for Sasuke, will eventually come to him for power, so we don't have to do anything. Unknown to the Sannin, Hulk is not dead. It may be because of the shock that he is unmoving as his body is working overtime trying to undo the damage. The little movement of pulling back the weapon probably woke him up as he rears back his fist before delivering a powerful haymaker, sending the Sannin deep into the forest. Having finally finished his fight, The giant fell flat on his face as he slowly shrinks back to Naruto. Mizuki side story. Fire Country Prison. Somewhere in Fire Country Prison, Mizuki was in the middle of freeing himself from prison life. He had spent weeks checking out the place for his escape plan, and many more weeks after to gather and hide the tools needed for such operation. It was not easy, as he not only hiding from the guards, he was also hiding them from his fellow prisoners too. Especially after it was known that he used to be Konoha ninja. Since many prisoners were captured by Konoha ninjas, it is understandable why Mizuki isn't popular among other prisoners. Whether he is a traitor or no traitor, they wouldn't have cared, and his superior attitude isn't helping him neither. Especially after his chakra paths were sealed, he is like just any other prisoner within the facility. Hence, his only option to escape is the old school method by tunneling his way out.
It was tough work, especially one that lost his chakra usage, hence why it took him months just to get this far. Seeing that he was so close to freedom makes enduring numbers of humiliations and beat-ups worth a while. Soon he will be free and meet up with Orochimaru, where he can get his invincibility drug he was promised for stealing the Forbidden Scroll. It was what Kabuto had told him, so the ex-Chunin couldn't wait to get out and exact on his own revenge against the QB brat. At least it was his plan until his tunnel caved in on him. Mizuki didn't what happened. 1 minute he was digging and shoveling, then suddenly his entire tunnel system fell on top of him. He was literally buried alive until he was fished out by the guards. Still coughing, he was helped to the prison infirmary. On his way he discovered the root cause of incident.
Ironically, there is a tree that struck, and at the same time collapsed his tunnel. Unfortunately, Mizuki knew immediately whom was responsible. There is only one person that uses a whole tree, a weapon, and the ex-Chunin had seen how effortless it was for him to toss it around.
The guards had to restrain and drag him away as he curses the QB brat, demon boy, monster boy, etc. He sworn loudly in his next attempt he will get out and come for him personally. Too bad. In order to prevent his next escape, they put him in a maximum security cell with solid concrete floor. Apparently the guards and warden all heard him, so they took his threats seriously. It will be a while before he can go anywhere, and an additional effort if he is still trying to escape from the prison. Guy side story. Kiri battles.
Among the one of greatest battle in Kiri history known today, one of the most fierce and bloodiest battle was between a tyrant Mizukage's forces and joint collaboration of bloodlined rebels. However, what was not written in history was one strange Konoha ninja dressed in green spandex that halted both sides during his appearance. Even more strangely was how he arrived by crashing out of the clear sky, splashing into solid ground before rolling into the tree and knocking it off its roots. There are still track marks today from his arrival, and how he had rolled hundreds of meters before coming to a stop. Both fractions had to step back a few steps when he inhumanly sprang back on his feet, scaring everyone from both sides. They were not sure which was more dangerous, the enemy ninjas or this crazily dressed being that came out of nowhere. The fact that it started sprouting some gibberish and nonsense about youthfulness got the ninjas looking at one another, hoping some understands what he is talking about. Thankfully, since no one agreeing or responded to his valiant speeches, Guy went on his way, leaving the two fractions lost and forgetting there was a war going on. At least that only for a while, until someone decides to continue the battle as if trying to forget the strange phenomenon.
Unknown to them, some of the combatants' groups weren't so lucky because Guy got himself lost. He was in contact with a few groups trying to ask for directions while the groups tries to kill each other. They had ignored him at first, but he was very persistent and constantly appearing to their sides as well as breaking their attacks just to ask nicely again. Guy was already an exceptional Jonin at the time, both very fast and an expert in taijutsu, so he could easily avoided their lethal blows while slipping in to ask his questions. When one squad wouldn't talk to him, he would appear in the next trying to inject himself between them. As two combatants were locked in a sword fight, they found themselves couldn't be pulled away, only to realize Guy held them together. He had the two sword hands locked just to plead to them to give him a sign and direction by Konoha. Guy even had anime tears as he explains he has his student to look after. Comically, the two continue their fight, trying to kill each other with their free hands and legs. Guy ducked from the exchange, but the title, expert in taijutsu, isn't given because of the way he dresses. As the two follow through with their kicks, Guy too dished his own, catching and rising their legs high in the air. They were temporarily struck, giving him an opening to snake in his foot before trapping them between his leg and thigh. Guy brought them down to his level, begging them for their help. Unfortunately, he was asking the wrong people, as the two had additional weapons that was just too dangerous to stay locked with. The Green Beast signed, but he didn't give up. There are still many combatants on the field as he worked his way to check every pair he can, vowing that he would walk his hands back to Konoha if he couldn't. So, to the horror of the combatants, guys slip in all their fights, stopping and pausing in the middle of their forms just to beg and plead for their attention. While the two sides still tries to kill the other, they all witness how he cut through their fights, interrupting their death matches. It was kind of discouraging in a war between two fractions when a single individual just waltzed in between them and they couldn't touch him. The sad part was he was both begging and pleading for direction.
In the end, they all had enough. Together as one, they all told him Konoha is to the west, as they all point to the same direction, hoping to get rid of him. Happy that God had not forsaken him and his student, he thanked everyone for their selfless contribution. He would have continued if the lot of them not told him to just go and get out of here.
By the time the spandex-dressed ninja left, the two sides felt both drained and very awkward. They all each other the look before sitting down. Why the hell were they fight? Well, this was how part of Kiri reached an understanding between two fraction. As for the green spandex Konoha ninja, they thought it was too stupid to add it in history, so they left him out. Kiri would become laughing stock if they claimed Konoha ninja crash landed in their home without know why he did what he did.
Bonus side story: Orochimaru and the Forest of Death. After the fight with the Hulk, Orochimaru was not sent flying out of the forest. Instead, he ended up deeper and nearer to the center where the most dangerous animals have taken residence. The Sannin only landed where he is because of a giant oak tree where he almost nailed himself headfirst into the bark if he had twisted and turned his body to lessen the impact. Nevertheless, it was still a painful landing, not to mention the damage he had received when the Hulk punched him to start off his journey. He was a little disoriented, but nothing he couldn't handle until he checked his surroundings. Surprisingly, the Sannin didn't recognize this part of the forest. He didn't know there has ever been swamp with marshes of such density. Is he still in the Forest of Death? The Sannin already knew the answer, but was surprised how much this place is different, and yet not known to him. Then again, he wasn't sure what hit him that sent him here, because he did remember killing the giant with his kusanagi. He was stopped in his thoughts when 4 shadows showed up. To his amusement and surprise, they are turtles. To be more specific, there are 4 humanoid-sized ninja turtles, and each one of them have their own colored eye masks along with weapons. The one with blue mask held 2 katanas, the orange one 2 nunchakus, the red 2 sais, and purple a bow staff. Based on their stances, they seem very proficient in how to use them. Not to forget, every one of them were also snaring at him. One fired, You are the snake, Sannin, that killed our master Splinter. It was more of a statement than question. Orochimaru had no idea who Splinter is, but he did kill a lot of people, so he couldn't confirm nor deny the claim. Seeing the human not denying nor refute the claim, the 4 angry reptiles changed to a more aggressive stance, preparing to revenge their master. I heard him said he would feed Master Splinter to one of his pet snakes, says the one in orange mask. It had caused waves of anger among the other turtles as they attack with furious intent and yet very controlled anger. Orochimaru had to dodge a few narrow passes as he tried to recall feeding someone of that name to his snakes. Sadly, he had used so many sacrifices for Manda, he wouldn't know if any one of them was called Master Splinter. He didn't have time to recall that bit of the memory as the 4 monster turtles took him on as a team. If it had been on 1-1-1, Orochimaru could probably take any one of them, but 4-on-1? It's another story. Not only are they very skilled, they fought together like a perfect team, covering one another's weaknesses. Since Orochimaru wasn't the best taijutsu practitioner, he was quickly overwhelmed by their combined assaults. He may have his kusanagi, but it would be useless against 7 pieces of deadly weapons coming his way nearly at the same time. What frustrates him even more was their shell is so hard, he couldn't even cut with the kusanagi. Not only did they use it to their advantage by using it as shields, they tried to crush him with it too. Orochimaru had to jump away quickly when the four aimed to sandwich him in the middle. Not to mention all four were very proficiency in their weaponry. The purple bow staff one he almost mistaken him trained by his own sensei. He had to backstep every time the staff was aimed at him as he ducked under the two katanas, followed by the sai-wielding turtle spinning like a drill towards his gut. The Sannin had to use all his snake skills to slither out of the way. They fought like that for nearly 20 minutes, never giving him time to start any ninjutsu or calling any of his summons. Since fighting the Hulk, he has been fighting a lot of green opponents ever since, as well as getting beaten by them. He is getting sick of the color green. Then again, it reminded him of that brat Might Gay and his father. Somehow everything seemed like it was their fault. The two had been talking about spreading their youth from the beginning. No doubt Gay made a mini copy of himself again, creating all these green creatures he had been fighting lately. Somehow, Orochimaru must have forgotten about his own experiment. Then again, he might just blame Gay for dressing in his stupid green spandex costume, which may have influenced him creating his lethal green substance. Shaking his head, either way he is pissed for getting beat up by things in green, thus he fought back extra hard. When he get back to his base, it would be a while for he to return to normal. He will probably kill anything that look or remotely look green. He managed to give himself seconds of breathing space, which he quickly used to summon massive stone wall, hoping to crush the four reptiles in one jutsu. The Sannin couldn't help but chuckle evilly, thinking these things were finally trapped like turtles they are. A fitting phase for what they are. However, his victory was short-lived as the creatures curl themselves up like a ball before shooting their way through his jutsu like a cannonball. By now, the Sannin is beyond annoyed as the four green turtle roll up to him before resuming the fight. He had to quickly duck from the dual katana before slithering away like the snake he is, hoping again to put some distance between them. The Sannin didn't get far as he was stopped by a sai nailing him to a tree, followed by quickly spinning high kick to his face. Orochimaru can see it was same red-masked turtle who threw the sai that kicked him, ripping him from the piece of robe struck to the tree. Before he could finish spinning, he was hit in the lower jaw by an incoming nunchaku.
He was literally helpless as it sent him spinning in another direction only to be stopped by a bow staff blow to his bowel. It didn't stop there as the purple masked turtle whacked him swiftly and expertly before finishing with a strike to the neck. Before you know it, he is on the ground surrounded by four mutated turtles, all discussing how they will skin him like a snake he is. They were about to act on their plan. A voice stopped them dead.
Turtles? Who were you fighting? Master Splinter? Sputters the orange-masked one. I thought you were eaten by a snake. I heard the ninja said, feeding someone like rats to his summon. His brothers seemed to figure out where their brother went wrong as they all slapped their own faces. The one with the blue mask appears to be their leader as he tries to massage a headache that is about to form. But the orange one didn't seem to quite get the problem. So sagely, the rat master said, "Really? Did you actually see me being fed to the snake?" No, but the Sannin said, was all he got before knowing where he went wrong. Never assume, my child. Let today be a lesson to all of you. Yes, Master, responded all the turtles at once. They were well disciplined as they all apologized sincerely before taking their leave. Very pleased. The Master nodding sagely. It was happy in his students' display in etiquette. Orochimaru can only watch helplessly on the ground as the group followed their master disappearing from the clearing. All this because of a misunderstanding. The Sannin wanted to scream if his jaws and body not hurt so much. Now I remember why I hate the place so much. Extremely pissed, it took him a while to get back on his feet before limping away. He's had enough of green creatures for the day. Then again, the rat gives him some form of recognition. He wasn't sure if it was because of all the rats he had experimented on that they all had the same look. However, seeing one this big talking and walking around with a cane is disconcerting. It makes him think twice using its species again as his future test subjects. If the disciplines could beat the hell out of him, he doesn't want to know what the master could do. It didn't help when it also dresses similar to Might Gay with bandages on its paws and feet. If it was not creepy enough by standing upright, it also wearing some kind of purple-colored master robe, along with a black belt. Orochimaru also thought he saw an amusement glint in its eyes, giving him creeps as he thought they were very familiar. Damn these turtles, he wanted to put a prize on their heads. Unfortunately, everyone would think he is a loon if he actually put bounty on them, so he will have to keep the incident quiet. Even his own followers would think he had finally lost his marbles, thus losing all respect of him. Worst of all, they would no longer fear him. So, for his own good, he will have to keep the incident secret while getting pissed off with everything related to turtles and the color green. Unknown to Orochimaru, turtles would be the least thing he would be angry about as he continues his trek out of the forest. Bonus scene: Hulk and the turtles. Seeing there is an intruder, the 4 hidden turtles hid in the treetops, waiting to surprise whoever dare coming through their territory. After confirming it's an outsider, they all drop down for the ambush. They succeed in stopping the newcomer from going any further. As they unsheathed their weapons, they were prepared for the inevitable fight should the intruder not leave their territory. However, when they finally get a good look at their opponent, they found themselves staring at part of his knee. They couldn't help but gulped at the sight as they slowly set their sights upwards. Then upwards and further upwards until their neck starts to hurt, stopping in the pair of eyes that's glaring at them. One turtle noted, "Totally humongous dude." His fellow brothers didn't disagree, nor did they say anything. They were all too busy staring at the giant with slack jaws. The 4 brothers may have fought huge mutant pig and rhino that are built like a tank. However, none had anything on the huge mountain of muscles that is in front of them. Just how on earth are they going to beat that? Their weapons look like toothpicks when compared against the giant. The only consolation is it's green, just like them. On their minds were, how are we going to fight that? Even the climb to get to the head could be summarized with one word: troublesome. They had to think fast as the big guy is getting annoyed for the 4 strange creatures blocking his way. It was a losing battle before it had begun, and every one of them knew it. That's when they felt it was a losing battle before it begins. And the giant doesn't look happy neither. The 4 mutants had to swallow nervously as whatever it is in front of them is very massive and very big. They would have argued the term big is a huge understatement of the century, seeing all the muscles that came along with the giant.
All 4 turtles looked at one another before quickly hid away their weapons, trying not to be seen too hostile. Acting as one, they all smiled and bowed politely, trying to make it look as the giant can go wherever he pleases. Thankfully, the giant continued on his way after losing interest in the 4.
One of the turtles wiped the sweat off his brows. That was close. That big guy could have made pizzas out of us. I mean, I like pizza, but not as some sort of self-sacrifice. Yeah, I don't think our weapons would have been effective on him. Responds the katana-wielding turtle as he wondered if he should switch to another weapon. Wow, did you see that? He is green just like us. Maybe he is a distant cousin. Interjected another turtle. Dude, that was totally awesome. All turtles turned to the happy orange masked turtle like he was out of his mind. Then again, they all thought it was really awesome as they high-fives one another. Since then, the Hulk is often seen as he strolled through their swamp, and the turtles too were used to his appearance. Like their master had once said, if you can't beat them, join them. His words were as wise as he always is, and the turtles were happier too. They had now an old couch along an old TV where everyone got together for pizza night. They even offered the Hulk a piece. While they accepted the offer, he still prefers ramen over the strange piece of bread. Then again, their friendly gesture had unknowingly befriended the giant, as they formed a small bond with one another. Unfortunately, their mutant pig and rhino rival had to find out the hard way when the Hulk booted them away, never to be seen again for at least 2 months. The 4 turtles silently patted themselves on the back for not fighting the big guy when they first bumped into each other. Of course, they also know about Naruto since they can sense he and the Hulk are the same person. Naruto was surprised when he encountered the talking turtles, but quickly got used to it and fast became friends. They were all hyper like him, so our blonde hero mixed well with them. He thought they were really cool, and also very strong. He agreed to keep their existence and location secret, so no one knew about them. The whole forest is weird, but Naruto find them in a good way. At least the turtles can talk. He had seen the ninja gorillas, and all they do is fight, so communication is last on their mind. As the turtles explained to him, all creatures are very territorial, so everyone work hard to defend their homes. It was how Naruto learned more about the forest and its inhabitants. Continuation of Orochimaru and the Forest of Death. As the snake Sannin got out of the territory, he was immediately stopped by another scene. He had just fought the mutant turtles and lost badly. He isn't about to take another beating by underestimating another one of these forest creatures. Besides, the gorilla is also wearing a cage hat along with a shadow kanji on the back of its cloak, literally saying the word cage. The ape is also standing dramatically with its back facing him, while his cape lifted by a gentle breeze that came out of nowhere. It makes his entrance and appearance more dangerous as well as more intimidating. However, Orochimaru was not feeling intimidated. Instead, he was thinking the forest is mocking him for his failed accession as a Konoha cage. First, it was ninja turtles. Now they have a cage gorilla. What is next? Sannin monkeys? What had his once so-called home village been up to all these years? Training animals for the circus. The Sannin is very angry. He wanted to curse the village for all his recent mishaps. Too bad his jaws were still hurt from previous beatings, so he couldn't say anything. He didn't want another senseless fight neither, so he had to curb in his anger. Konoha will know his wrath when he finally starts his invasion. Only then can he burn the whole forest down along with the village. For now, he will pretend he didn't see this insult as he quietly leave, and not to attract unwanted attention. Whether the hat is for show or not, the snake Sannin didn't want to find out. Sadly, before he can leave and take the long way round, he found himself surrounded by what he thinks are monkey teams of genin. They were all littering and blocking his retreat path, covering even the treetops. Painfully, he groaned loudly as the mob slowly closes in on him. His painful and already injured body isn't prepared for another bout, so he quickly summoned a snake in his place. Unfortunately, the poor snake seemed to have just woken up to find itself swarmed by apes as they beat it senseless. Orochimaru had already shunshin himself away. His summon is just a distraction, so he wouldn't be chased or tracked by these beasts. He wouldn't be summoning another snake for a while, so he hoped he wouldn't meet any more crazy animal. Very unfortunately and unknown to the Sannin, his path is leading him to the panda's territory, where many warrior-class pandas made it their home. They are also particularly strong thanks to their leader's previous humiliation against the Hyugas. Since then, the panda united and recruited other pandas and trained them. Think of the panda from World of Warcraft. Mists of Pandaria trailer. If Orochimaru thought the cage gorilla an insult to him because of his sensei's summon, he will hate the pandas more because, like the Sandaime, they are very proficient in using the bow staff. Orochimaru knew he was in trouble when he found himself on a clearing that looked very much like an arena. It looked like he had just entered himself in some sort of open cage tournament. The reason he thought it was a cage was because it was guarded in four corners with pandas carrying abnormally long sticks. He guessed correct if he took the coward's way out. These guards will use their sticks to knock him back in. Seeing the size of their arm muscles helped him see they were not just for show. Just what is wrong with animals with sticks? He is pissed getting beat like a dog, as he wondered if his sensei had a hand in any of them. The Sannin had to swallow a loud gulp as he found his opponent, the biggest and baddest looking panda, waiting for him. Once again, the snake Sannin is forced into another beating. Only this time he couldn't get away. It was more unnerving because his opponent had not moved. It was, however, still chewing a bamboo leaf, constantly switching it from one side or the mouth to the other, then back again. It also hid its eyes under its straw hat, making the scene more like a showdown than a challenge. Unfortunately, Orochimaru wouldn't find out how true it was until he starts his fight. The panda is not only very good with the staff, he hits very hard too. The Sannin did give his all. but the panda always knocked him down in one or two moves, making him feel like a genin sparring with his sensei again. By the time Orochimaru woke up, he was alone in the arena, and there was a beautiful sunset. The Sannin don't want to talk about it. He won't be coming back to this forest ever again. Of course he wouldn't be telling anyone anything. When he finally meet with Kabuto, the Sannin will be covering from head to toe with cloak. Kabuto wouldn't dare asking him about it anyway, as he will think it was just a cover-up to avoid being seen by Konoha. Unknown to the glasses-wearing spy, the Sannin will dress like that for a while as he tries to hide away his bruises. Nevertheless, the atmosphere would be pretty awkward with Orochimaru for a while. A little extra: apes, pandas, and the Hulk. Unknown to the Sannin, the Hulk had already beaten all the tribes in the forest, and were given free pass in all their territories. The monkeys and gorilla were no match no matter how many they fight him with. The Hulk was just too powerful, and couldn't be pinned down. Like other forest animals, they also recognizes Naruto as Hulk's other half. In fact, the cage gorilla's flying cape was his idea. The ape liked it so much he offered Naruto a bunch of his bananas every time the boy comes around. It confuses many Anbus where the boy got them because there isn't any place that grows them. The pandas too had challenged the Hulk. However, no matter how many hits they got on him, their sticks did nothing to the giant. Even after using their specials by enforcing their attack with chi and applying yin-yang effects for internal damage, the Hulk withstood them and only pushed back to the edge of the arena. One punch was all he needed to finish the fight, sending them out of the ring, thus defeating them. Their relationship is like one beast to another as they formed some sort of mutual respect with one another. Not to mention Naruto again found his way inside the hearts of tribe, as he was the one that gave the head panda the straw hat. Naruto had seen it train in the rain so often that he used all his allowance to buy the animal something to keep its head dry. It was how Naruto became fast friends with the animals in the forest, as they seemed to understand how much effort the boy put into giving them something. They may not be able to communicate, but the blonde child always find ways to get through any barrier. Authors note: Forest of Death. Heading to the tower. With the rogue Sannin gone for good, Sakura finally sighs in relief. Unfortunately, she's left with a dilemma. Having both of her teammates down and unconscious, she was lost in what to do. One thing for sure, she will have to move them to a safer location. At least away from their current position. The battle would have attracted many unwanted attention. And sadly, she herself isn't built for fighting. Then again, she still have to move both of her teammates because leaving one behind isn't an option. Anyway, she thanked whichever deity above watching. She doesn't have to move the Hulk because it would have been next to impossible even for Kakashi. Ninja or no ninja, no one could carry the giant on their own, let alone someone such as Sakura. Chakra may help you run faster, make you a little stronger, or even help strengthen your body so you can better defend yourself, but it does not make you a superhuman. Hence, why it took that many Anbus to carry Hulk to the secret hideout when he first appeared. Thankfully, she managed to hurl them somewhere safe by taking one of her team on her shoulder while the other under her arm. Luckily, Naruto's wound seems to close by itself, hence all she needed was just a little bandaging to stop the bleeding. She thought it may be due to the side effects of his transformation, thus never thought much of it. For all she knew was whatever is in Naruto is automatically healing him, thus turning him back to the original Naruto. It was understandable for her mistake since the Kyuubi is still a village secret to everyone their age. Thankfully, with the fox in him, it is working overtime in both healing and counteracting the poison. Along with his Uzumaki heritage, his wounds were less fatal than it was. Hence, why Sakura have only to stop the bleeding and let his body do the rest. Still, due to her inexperience, it took her some time and effort to locate a secure site and getting them there. She even built some traps taught by the academy, hoping they will work well against animals and enemy shinobi alike. She had never felt so useless in her life, as there was always one of her team member around to support her doing all the heavy lifting. This time, however, she is truly alone and on her own. She is now feeling the ultimate pressure of independence as she attempted to rest while guarding her team. Unfortunately, her traps were fairly low level, thus were easily seen through by any competent genin. Hence, why they were quickly noticed by Dosu from the sound team. Only thanks to Lee from Team Gay, then later Team 10's intervention, did she and Team 7 manage to survive. In the end, Sasuke woke up and finished the fight under the influence of Orochimaru's seal. That's when Naruto's body decides his healing was over, only to find his teammate Sasuke challenging him for a fight. Having just woke up from his slumber, Naruto was in no mood for another bout. He is still sore from battling the Sannin. Even if it wasn't him that was doing the fight, it was nevertheless his body. Obviously, his teammate couldn't take no for an answer, thus charged at him. The battle was over before it got started. The last Aha was instantly smacked into the ground. Coming from the same class, they had seen it many times, thus no one was surprised in the outcome. Only difference is it usually only happens with Kiba instead of the level-headed Uchiha. Naturally, it is Hulk now standing in Naruto's place. He was looking at everyone stupidly with the expression of what? And no one bothered trying to explain things to him. Shikamaru had long categorized the green guy as troublesome, so he wouldn't even bother voicing it out loud. He was more afraid being robbed into explaining the word troublesome to the intellectual challenged giant. Hence, he was very careful not to use it around the big guy. Naruto may not know what was going on, but seeing his teammate going psychotic, he didn't bother holding back his instincts, thus changing him to the Hulk. You don't need to be a genius to know something's wrong. The ugly-looking and moving tattoos on him were already a dead away. Then there is the evil-looking aura and his odd behavior even for an Uchiha. Hence why Naruto's other self just bashes him without hesitation. For all he know, this isn't even his teammate. You can also forgive Naruto too, because obviously he must have been tired since the last fight. Thus it was understandable why he is still grumpy and easily let the Hulk took over. Then again, his transformation didn't last very long. After taking care of his deranged teammate, the Hulk quickly detransforms, and again back to the very tired-looking Naruto. That was weird, was all he said as others' sweat dropped. Must be strange for him to wake up from the short transformation. To everyone else, it was like watching someone waking up in the morning, silencing the annoying alarm clock, then went back to sleep again. As said before, no one was surprised. They were all part of the same graduation, so naturally they were familiar with the blonde's condition and his antics. Slowly, Sasuke rose back from his faceplant. What happened? Again, no one said anything, as it's getting weirder and weirder. It seems he didn't remember he was trying to kill his teammate. 1 second he was bloodthirsty, and the next he is back to normal. It was like the Hulk just knocked out his evil twin with his smackdown. As if to change the topic, Sakura decides to invite Team 10 to travel with them. The more the merrier, and safety in numbers came to their minds. Obviously, Shikamaru nods with agreement, thus the whole Team 10 agrees. Their team have already their scrolls thanks to their excellent teamwork and the shadow users' strategies. They each did their own parts, thus easily stolen a scroll from some unsuspecting team. Luckily, they all got off without having to fight. The brains of the team knew they wouldn't be so lucky the closer they are to the tower. And besides, with Naruto around, they are much safer than on their own. Team 7. However, thanks to Naruto interrupting the handover of their own scroll, manages to keep theirs. After the battle, Sakura found it littering in the dirt, thus they were very lucky considering their opponent was Orochimaru. Along with the other left by the sound ninjas, they now have both, thus can start heading for the tower. Both teams arrived safely thanks to Naruto. Even Shikamaru was lost how that happened. Somehow Naruto managed to convince them to take what he considers as shortcut and travel through the apes' territory. Of course, in the beginning they didn't know it was filled with primates until it was too late. Team 10 was obviously skeptical because, having navigated this far, they never thought there could be any shortcuts. They also realizes the deeper you go into the forest, the more dangerous the animals were, hence they took numbers of detours. However, since the Whisker Blonde was so confident, they choose to follow him. After all, what could be worse than they have already faced? Naturally, they ended up in the middle of a monkey festival. They couldn't explain it otherwise. Why else would an army of primates gathered in one spot? It was just a clearing a minute ago, and then suddenly, they were surrounded by the animals. Thankfully, one look at Naruto got them all a safe passage. At least this was what Shikamaru thought he saw as they trekked through the ape creature's home. Both teams can only stare at their team classmate with disbelief, as he continues to lead them through the animal-infested jungle like it was his backyard. Had they took the normal route, they would have met with more possible ambush as well as potential resistance. Shikamaru didn't know what to say. Troublesome is obviously inappropriate, as the blonde did manage to guide them to the finish line, without having to fight a single battle. Then again, the image of ninja monkeys were disturbing. Are they planning to take over a village? He thought to himself. They have an army of them and were wearing ninja garments. Those were the Nara's troubled thoughts. Thankfully, he hadn't seen the other organized animal residents, or he would have a mental meltdown. Even both Ino and Sakura were exceptionally quiet as they ventured through the land full of the monkeys. Only Naruto was not worried, as he led the way urging them to hurry up. The others can only stare at him oddly, seeing he was least bothered by the stares from the primates. Unfortunately, the trek was not without incident, as Choji thought with his stomach as he tries to grab one of the bananas. He was only stopped by his best friend Shikamaru, using his shadow bind technique. It was then a tug of war as the Akamichi didn't give up easily, whereas his Nara friend held him while trying to convince him otherwise. No doubt they were attracting their attention, and from the snarls and growls they weren't very pleased. Sadly, his teammate has yet to see the problem, and openly trying to steal the primate's natural diet. Just when the situation reaches critical point, and to the surprise of both teams, Naruto grabbed a few branches and tossed them to the big-boned genin. It seems Choji had long ran out of chips, so he decided the delicious-looking bananas were the next best thing. Since the boys' clan had treated him well in the past, Naruto knew the clan's habits, so he took them in Choji's place and handed to him. This gave him amazement looks from the genins, excluding Choji, of course, as he was too busy gobbling down the only food source he now had. Sasuke thought it was somehow a trick, thus tried to take one too, but all the hissings made him retract his hands quickly. Unknown to the teams, Naruto is an exception, as the animals all recognizes him as the Alpha. Besides, aside from the Hokage, he seemed to attract leaders of various tribes like bees to honey. Shikamaru too noticed this, because as soon they came to the animals' territory, one look on the blonde, the animals all relaxed. He had the feeling they would have acted differently had Naruto not been there with them. Thoughts turns to questions as the Nara couldn't hold it in. Naruto, do you know these animals? Can you talk to them? The blonde was shocked by the question. He had always thought it was normal, so he didn't expect such question. Like others having a dog as your friend, it was the same, isn't it? Just like Kiba. Sure, I met them when I was trying to leave the forest, but they can't talk though. He responds nonchalantly, not seeing a big deal out of it. Trying to leave the forest. They can't talk though. Thought the genius. It raises more questions than answers. He had the feeling that the monkeys weren't his ex-classmates' only friends. Just what has he been doing in his free time? Then again, some other animals can talk too. As the young Nara often say, it's just too troublesome. He's already getting a headache from thinking all the possibilities. The Forest of Death isn't just any walk in the park, and the conversation they just had indicates that the blonde comes here often. It was obvious if he has special relations with them, it must mean he can come and goes as he pleases. Besides, there must be another mystery why they are not hostile with him. So the blonde must have done something that warranted their respect. God knows just what he did with the other animals they have yet seen. Chunin. Exams. Preliminary round. Like the anime, the fights went as expected until they got to Naruto's turn. Unfortunately for Kiba, he is called as his opponent. For years in the academy, the Inuzuka and his dog suffered numbers humiliation by the blonde. Whether they were intentionally or not doesn't matter. As a result, Kiba was made the clown of his class. Sadly, even today, it often served as a reminder of how he couldn't let go of his ego, thus making him repeat his own mistakes over and over. Somehow at the time he couldn't figure out both the Hulk and Naruto are the same person, thus making him act rashly, challenging one or the other thoughtlessly. Since his first loss to the giant, and by means of a single sneeze, Kiba took it as an insult to both him and his clan. He isn't stupid as to think he could beat the big guy, so he set his sight on the weaker version of the two. And that is Naruto himself. His mindset is like that of a common bully. If you can't beat the big guy, you pick on his friends instead. Hence, why he acted on his petty little revenge by setting a prank so others can laugh at his classmate. With Akamaru's help to jump on and surprise his classmate, Kiba hid behind Naruto's legs to trip him over. His plan worked and Naruto did fall to his prank, but unfortunately Kiba neglected one important matter regarding his target. That is whenever the blonde gets shocked, surprised, or even angered, he changes to his alter ego. So when Naruto loses his balance, Kiba's smirk turns to horror, as instead of the blonde falling, it's a mountain of muscle tipping over him. The whole scene was like a huge eclipse coming over the Inuzuka's face just before he was buried. Sadly, the only noise managed to get out of him was Girly's scream. Before it was silenced, thus attracted the whole school to come and see his fabulous accomplishment. It was laughable that the whole academy was there, and memorable for those lucky enough to witness the spectacle. When Iruka had arrived, he can immediately guess the situation and whom was involved. It wasn't hard to see the other culprit, seeing Akamaru is on top of the whole situation. Since Kiba was nowhere to be seen, it would only be natural to assume the only visible claw-like hands from beneath the Hulk is him. It was a prank any normal kid would play, but unfortunately Naruto isn't any normal kid, thus, how the Inuzuka's plan backfired. Thankfully, they can still hear his almost silent, muffled cry, so they know he was in no imminent danger. Had he not been an Inuzuka, Iruka would have been more worried. His clan were well known for their almost guy-like training routines, hence many were fairly physical condition. Hence a few scars and broken bones are normal for his clan. To make matters worse, Akamaru cutely stomps the Hulk's face, thus preventing the big guy from getting back up. Not that the act could hurt him, but it serves as good distraction, which the giant was feeling slightly annoyed for. The Hulk could have easily swatted him off, but the little puppy was like those adorable little kids he usually hangs around with, thus the Hulk let it slide. Sadly, not knowing its master is under his supposed target, the little puppy continues to follow through in his task while celebrating its false victory. This in turn makes Kiba more of a clown, since he can't exactly blame his partner. So that's the reason why Iruka had his hand over his face. He was ashamed for his students' stupidity. His class had already first-hand experience with Mizuki's unintended demonstration, why it was such a bad idea going near the Hulk, especially hiding behind him. Yet his wayward student decides to pull a prank that literally spells disaster. After Iruka and Anbus removes the puppy, and to get the Hulk off him, it was too dangerous to move him without causing him pain. Hence, why they have a stretcher available to take him. They won't be taking him to the Academy Infirmary, because his injuries will need some serious medical attention and hospital stay. Sadly, they will be carrying him through the village, as he yips for the medics not to be too rough. It's how the whole village came to learn about his stunt. If Kiba thought things couldn't get any worse, he was sadly mistaken. First, his partner hopping on him showing concerns for his friend master, but sadly the puppy simply didn't quite understand the term broken bones, so he just kept on nudging Kiba. Then again, he couldn't even scream or tell his partner to get off because his jaw was dislocated. So all he manages was some muffled screams, which makes even less sense to the puppy. Hence, it was agonizing pain for him all the way to the village medical center, both physically and mentally, as he will be known as the crazy kid that tried to fight the Hulk only to be defeated by its fall. It has a certain funny side to it, as the Hulk's fall was not meant for its defeat, but actually falling on top of the Inuzuka. His clan's special hearing isn't making it easy for him neither, as he can hear all the gossips on his way to the infirmary. Of course, to add insult to the injury, he was later scolded by his mother for his stupidity. She was also very vocal, and did not care about the audiences consisting both patients and medical staff. Normally, such loud discussion would get the Alpha Inuzuka thrown out, but since the hospital had been boring for everyone, they were rather entertained. Especially hearing the stunt was coming from the next clan heir, and how it got him here. His mother was not helping neither, since she isn't shy bringing up all his past shameful deeds too. So, for the duration of his stay, and while in full body cast, he received giggles from passing nurses and laughs from his neighboring patients. Some would come for a chat and offering him stuff before patted his shoulder for a job well done. He thought they were complimenting him for his guts, but later realized they thanked him for the entertainment. Sadly, he only learned about it from some little brats as they point to him and telling their friends what he did. After he got out and many months later, instead of staying away, he tried an even more direct approach in hopes to regain his reputation by challenging the blonde to an official sparring match. Somehow he got the idea if he managed to defeat his classmate before the transformation, he could secure himself a win by default. So during a class taijutsu match, he specifically picked Naruto as his opponent. The blonde was getting bored since he was always excluded from combat activities, so when Kiba decides he wants to fight him, Naruto immediately jumped to his chance. Unfortunately, their teacher did not want to agree because he had seen just too many times what the Hulk could do. Having a headstrong academy trying to fight him could only spell disaster. Even Anbus have trouble trying to pacify him and not always work. Iruka can see his own chances. Sadly, the two headstrong boys trying to convince him otherwise isn't helping him, making his decision easier. Not when the entire class joins in on both boys' side isn't helping neither, calling it a learning experience before becoming a real ninja. Then there is the Uchiha pointing out that out there on the battlefields they would have to learn to take risks anyway. Truth is, Sasuke too wanted to test just how powerful the Hulk really is, and if Kiba wants to be the guinea pig, then who's to deny him? At least this way he could clear up some of the rumors and see for himself if they were true or not. Kiba may tie closely second to Sasuke in physical combat, but compares to the Hulk he is like an ant trying to fight an elephant. Yet Iruka baffled why and how his student fails to see that, and still continues to challenge the big guy every now and then. Just as the kid preaches, or rather trying to convince him that some lessons they have to learn by doing before going out on actual battlefields. The scar-faced teacher wonders if the boy can really understand what he just said, because the brat has yet to figure out why he shouldn't pick fight with someone that is bigger than he is. In the end, the teacher sighs in defeat. With Kiba, it's like trying to shoot a kunai to the moon, because it can never reach it. Thus he gave up trying to convince the boy not to do it. Looking sadly to his wallet, he wondered how many bowls of ramen the giant would want before finally let go of Kiba in exchange. Iruka wonders if it was a good thing the Anbus gave him tips on how to calm the giant. The only thing he could do now is hoping Kiba won't get the big guy too mad, because otherwise he will need a lot more ramen bowls. As for Kiba, he was eager to show off his new technique, beast human body technique secret art. Bang, passing fang. It had took him weeks to learn, and many days after that to get it usable. Hence why he was so confident and sure. Against the Hulk his chances may be small, but against just his classmate the blonde wouldn't stand a chance. Another reason why Kiba was so confident was because it was a clan art. Like the gentle fist of the Hyugas, Fang passing Fang is part of his clan's beast, human taijutsu style. The attack utilizes the full uses of the main style, combining physical strength, speed, agility, as well as endurance for the spinning attack. Beast. Human art is a concept made by the Inuzukas, imitating their animal partner and using all four limbs to their advantage. Hence, Fang passing Fang isn't just a simple leaping and spin technique. It uses full power of the user's four legs to initiate and rotate. The rotation is just to make attack more deadly while at the same time defending themselves. Thus, their enemies can't land a direct hit while they are in motion. Similar notion as a spinning top. All projectiles aiming at it ended up being deflected. No wonder why Kiba was extra confident, because he really does understand his clan art. So, besides showing off, he wanted to teach the blonde a lesson, using his family style, hoping to take him by surprise. Indeed, to his expectations, Naruto couldn't even put up a defense, thus his aim was met with flesh directly. The force was so powerful it lifted Naruto off the ground, taking him into Kiba's vortex as his whole body spins along with the Inuzukas. However, just as Kiba thought he had won, both he and the rest of the class learned that knocking Naruto out does not mean it's over. Kiba knew something was wrong when he heard something stomps into ground, and at the same time his target somehow gotten heavier. Apparently, after the blonde was literally taken for a spin, he starts to change. Like an anchor just deployed, the green leg stops his body from spinning to Kiba's rhythm. It was too late for the dog user, so he can only push on hoping his attack can still pull through. Even Naruto stopped spinning. He was still overpowered as passing Fang pushes him back, making drag marks as the two fought for dominance. However, unknown to Kiba, Naruto was only half transformed, hence how he manages to push him this far. As his opponent slowly gains mass and strength, his gain in distance starts to decrease. In the end, Kiba found himself under the Hulk's grasp. Before things could escalate, Iruka immediately declares Naruto the winner. Silence was all he got, and even the good teacher felt awkward waiting for the giant to acknowledge him. Even the whole class held their breaths, not knowing what their huge classmate would do to their other classmate. Kiba, too, found himself very nervous, because the big naturally held him like he's just a toothpick. The Hulk, too, probably didn't know what was going on. He was again brought out to this world with something pressing into him. So naturally, he instinctively opposed the force with his own. When it was over, the other nice teacher that often treats for ramen says he's the winner. It was no surprise why the Hulk was confused, thus even forgotten about Kiba in his hand. It took a little while for him to realize it, seeing it wasn't ramen. The Hulk just toss him like it was useless garbage. Humiliatingly, somehow his aim manages to land the Inuzuka right in the garbage can. Unfortunately, Kiba couldn't complain because he is already unconscious. Like his every encounter with the giant, something bad always happens to him. Coming back to the preliminary, Kiba can already see it. Even if he had added Akamaru to the fight, the Hulk would just smack them around like they were children. His only future would be whether the giant would be merciful in the end. Either way, their fight would only end in his humiliation and pain again. So when he was called, for the first time, the next heir to the Inuzuka made an intellectual choice. He forfeited. His declaration shocked many of his classmates, except for one that keeps complaining how troublesome it was. Naruto was just making his way to the arena, and he too was surprised by the dog boy's declaration. The two were very much alike. Thus he was very surprised his opponent would give up this easy. Even those around Sendai Hawkage thought perhaps the boy could have made Chunin if he is always this level-headed. Kiba too was a little overwhelmed because he is actually receiving praises from his sensei and other jonins. They all said it was a very mature decision as they congratulates him. Then he asks a stupid question. Does it mean I am now Chunin? Kurenai can only sigh, for her student can be both bright and stupid at the same time. Patting the boy over the head, she nevertheless tells him the bad news. To all her students, she is more like a mother than a sensei. She did think he is capable of becoming Chunin. His loyalty and care of his team is a good example for a leader. In fact, each and every one of her students has their own part that could easily get them promoted. It was the reason why she had nominated them in the first place. Sadly, Kiba's match was just a matter of bad luck. His decision may have merit, but unfortunately, it does not give him an automatic promotion. His action in the eyes of those that knew him shown huge leaps of maturity to his old behavior, but not enough to make him an official Chunin. He will at least needs to reach the finals for that opportunity. Their many lords and nobles will witness what kind of Chunin ninja he is, thus increasing prospects of missions. It's how the ninja nations advertise their ninjas, and at the same time let their potential clients see who they could hire. Of course, one can always get field promotions, only they wouldn't be well known unless something extraordinary happens during the mission. Normal ninja missions are usually boring, such as border patrols and gate guarding duty, etc. Big clients wouldn't hire just anyone, hence it's important you show what you can do in the exams. In the meantime, for Kiba, his peers will see him a little differently. Hinata and Neji. Preliminary fight. Another match to note was Hinata Hyuga against her cousin. It was a close match, but Neji came out clearly the victor, but not without injury. Apparently, thanks to the incident in her younger days, her personality was slightly changed due to that event. Everyone has their own trigger, and hers was all down to protecting something she values the most. For that sole reason, her cousin had a very difficult time breaking the usual meek and shy girl. At first, the elder Hyuga just down-talk her, which, like the anime Naruto, rebuked hotly as he hates attitudes like that. In order to defend her crush and friend, Hinata was willing to fight her brother figure because she too believes one can change. She was hoping to show her older cousin she is very different, and perhaps to show him he too can change. Sadly, Neji was dead, set in his fate believes to see what she was trying to do, and Hinata too was not yet ready to face such adversary. Having lived under the same roof, Neji knew about his cousin's precious garden. It was not difficult to see how she waters it, getting herself all dirty like a commoner taking care of it. He too had heard about the incident, but unfortunately he had no interest learning what she did afterwards, but only what upsets her. Making her take all the blame of the main house's crime, Neji attacks her weaknesses. So he verbally abuses her while smirking at her insecurities. He wanted to destroy her already small confidence for the insult by remaining in the arena. Then he will finish her afterwards. It was probably a great plan, and one that may have worked until he brought up her stupid garden, saying how he will cut down the monstrosity into pieces, then burn it as firewood as it fated to be. Had he knew beforehand what he unleashes afterwards, he'd probably think twice before using that approach. Sadly, when Hinata lowers her head, Neji could not see her eyes, so he thought he's breaking her, thus continuing his threats and promises. If he could, his actions are like adding fuel to a fire. Then again, her posture made her look like she was about to give up or cry in the shadows of her hair. Neji was so sure and confident, he didn't bother to check with his ever-seeing Byakugan eyes. Otherwise, he would have shut up long ago, because the anger he about to see isn't anything like the usual meek-looking and lack of confidence Hinata. Her general outlook was the main reasons the elders dislike her, because made their clan look weak and stupid. Yugas should always look proud and have their head held high to show their superiority, but her posture screams otherwise. They don't think she is fit representative as one of their noble clan, let alone the clan heir. Unfortunately for the young branch member, he only hears how incompetent and useless she was, and not the incident she sent a main house member to hospital. It was not surprising because aside from those present, everyone kept a tight lip over the incident. Since the one injured is also grandson of their elder, no branch member dared to speak about the event. Neji says fate was predetermined. His two were sealed when he couldn't keep his mouth shut. As for the moment Hinata set her eyes on him, he was momentarily stopped dead like a deer caught in a headlight. He almost swallowed his own tongue. To say she switched herself with a demon would be an understatement, as her glare was as deadly as what her eyes told him. The message was clear. It promises pain worse than what a cage bird can deliver. Then there's her death. Aura as even Gaara took a step back, so it's understandable why Neji's confidence and fate induced chance of winning plunges to rock bottom. Even the Hokage had to wince at her sudden transformation. He had heard of the incident from Hiyashi and her sensei Kurenai. He was warned beforehand so he wouldn't think it's another demon attack or mistaking it as some kind of possession. At the time, even Hayashi had to turn away to not look directly in her daughter's eyes. The Hyuga impassive stare was already intimidating enough, but Hinata's glare could literally freeze anyone, and maybe bore holes in them. He had already his fair share of horrors from his wife when she was extremely angry, so he knew how it felt. Like her mother, Hinata too has the look of the Grim Reaper, which is scary even to him. He had hoped his daughter could find ways to control that overprotective attitude like her mother, and use it for the clan. It was how the two got married in the first place. The elders were against their wedding, but her silent stare was enough to make them change their minds. She didn't need to be vocal, as all she gave them was the silent death stare, daring them to give her a reasonable explanation. Since the elder couldn't handle the pressure, nor came up with a plausible reason, they let them go on with the wedding. It was the reason why they didn't like her, but since she often gets what she wants, they had to respect that side of her. Now that his daughter inherited that death glare, and only manifests when her loved ones were threatened, he had to admit it was a good trait to have because, like her mother, she would defend those whom she deemed precious. Hence, why he let her kept the monster plant. Then again, he didn't have the heart to face her look if he gave orders to have her plant destroyed. Like they say, it's better to be on the side of the devil than in its path. In his case, in the path of her rape. Hence, it would be understandable why Neji was horrified when Hinata brought out her extremely pissed goddess act. In fact, everyone in the exam felt the chill when she exploded. There was no hesitation, and only took a blink of an eye to execute. One moment she was giving her cousin the look, and the next a devastating blow was sent to his bowels. The result was not only spectacular, it was so powerful that Neji flew all the way into the wall. Silence fell as the audiences stared with slack jaws. They couldn't believe how such small girl was able to generate this much power. Of all those present, only Guy seems to see her secret as he stared at her hind foot. It dug at least an inch into the ground. Only a taijutsu master, such as he, would see the small details and admire how the move was executed. In fact, he too was fooled by her weak look, and be completely surprised by the sudden attack. However, what was more impressive was her total execution of her technique. He had heard the original 64 palm uses the fundamental aspects of the 8 trigram philosophy, thus produces the 8x8 strikes as result. By using the circular motions as basis, the repetition was built up, thus enforcing each hit after another until the final attack is delivered. The concept is similar to a sling. The force and powers builds up until it is used to strike someone. Hence why the last would be most devastating. Unfortunately, on a battlefield, no one's going to stand around until you finish building up, and it use on them. Hence, the original Hyuga devised the preemptive strikes to both to delay or use as defensive measure against their opponent. However, with the gentle fist later developed, 64 palm became even deadlier, thus, how the Hyuga art became one of the strongest taijutsu techniques in the ninja world. In Hinata's case, she skipped the original purposes of the 64 palm and went straight for the final blow. In Guy's eyes, he knew she hasn't completely skipped the build-up concept. Instead, she took it internally within her body. Had others been more observant, they would have seen the footprint of hers. Using her pivoting foot as support, she was able to channel the force by using twisting motion as she executes the full technique. Most of the audiences probably only see the quick step before delivering the famous Hyuga palm strike. While the speed of the execute was impressive, it was the power to send her opponent into the wall that is jaw-dropping. Of course, most of the audiences only knew this because of her final stance looking like a clockwise capital K. Others may not know it, but Guy saw more than just a simple palm strike. The split-second execution and almost synchronized movement on her whole was something not even he could do because it requires a flexible body like hers. By connecting her foot, ankle, knee, hip to upper body movements, the entire process was something the taijutsu expert gives her the most credit. Not to mention how she pulls back one shoulder, pushing and enforcing the other while applying the corkscrew technique to her gentle fist. It was like a driving force using the little movements, building up as it travels up her body, before delivering it to Neji. This was the reason Guy was speechless, because he actually understood the value in her entire technique. The entire technique can be felt when Neji tries to get his body off the wall, only to almost fall to his knee. He managed to stop himself due to both his personal pride and hate against the main branch members. He would never fall before his despicable cousin. Then again, he couldn't straighten his back like a Hyuga. Should hence why he was so angry now. If was as if his cousin just blew a hole through him. It was true in a way because the blow did rip a hole where it had landed, thus proving Guy's corkscrew theory. The first blow was spectacular, as the whole audience can see. Neji almost had his guts spilled. Naturally, his defenses were now heavily centered around his midsections. He can't afford another direct hit to the same spot again. While his cousin also uses the same art, Neji was angry in hers. He thinks it's a bastardized version of the real gentle fist. Instead of the rigid and solid groundwork of their traditional style, hers sways like a willow, making it look weak and silly. However, combining it with chakra, it was ridiculously effective because it attacks him like a whip, and very difficult to defend. He was also exceptionally angry because he was almost tagged by the bastardized version of the gentle fist, as he believes it is inferior. Yet if it manages to hit him, it contradicts his belief, hence why he is so angry at his cousin. He thought he could read her movements until her hand suddenly snakes around his arm and juke in his shoulder. The prodigy wanted to scream for her perversion of their tradition, but Hinata came dangerously close in kicking his face. That's when those from Konoha realizes this was no ordinary gentle fist because their style never had kicks. It was an eye-opener for those that knew the Hyuga style because Hinata's foot attack somehow resembles the style. Hence why Neji was confused because he was both familiar and unfamiliar with the attack. It was the reason he can still dodge several surprises. He is truly a prodigy of his generation. No one around his age knew more about their style than he. It was how he could seem to predict her next move. However, the pattern soon changes again as she switches back and forth between fists and feet versions, making it very difficult for Neji to see what she would do next. Surprisingly, he had only been fighting with one hand because the other was disabled earlier by her surprise. Yet he still manages to come to a standstill against something that's almost completely new to him. Even more amazing is that he was handicapped. Anyone can see how he concentrated most of his defenses around his midsection. No doubt Hinata's initial blow still affecting him. Thankfully, the young branch member is very proficient in his art, as he defends himself with one functioning hand while using chakra as shield. Then there is also the 8 trigrams. Neji has yet to see. There is a maximum of 64 strikes, which the prodigy child mastered, thus why he immediately recognizes the opening stance. Fortunately for the older family member, Hinata has yet to achieve the complete 64 combo, but unfortunately for him, she has other means to compensate for the lost numbers. She did this by adding her legs to complete the full combo. Traditional or not, the male Hyuga couldn't fault them as they were certainly effective. While no permanent damage were taken, he was not sure how many surprises his crazy cousin can dish out, or better question how long he can hold on. Unlike his stiff but more powerful version of 8 trigrams, Hinata's version seems to spam almost infinite number of 8 trigram attacks. It was like when her hands are tired, she switches to using her legs, followed by her hands again, then vice versa. Neji knew the family style well. He could defeat even Shunin Hyuga members without problem. However, when 2 extra limbs were added to the style, and even if it was remotely looking like another Hyuga technique, it was not something his inexperienced mind can handle. Also, taking his cousin's flexibility into account, the assault would look like it changes direction in the middle. His injuries and closed chakra path points were evidence on how surprisingly effective they were. Hinata was about to finish her attack as she makes her final assault with a flying leap and came crushing down on her cousin. He hadn't anticipated that the Hyuga style could be used in mid-air, thus was too late to get out of the way. There had never been a direct top-down attack in the Hyuga style, thus Neji had to make do with improvisation. He defended by striking his opponent upwards. Hence how they ended up in such a stalemate where the two were joined like a pillar, palm against palm, and one on top of the other. Unfortunately, since Neji is at the bottom, he is literally supporting his cousin's entire weight with one arm, whereas Hinata watches him like a hawk. She was waiting for him to tire himself out before coming down to finish him off. She still has her other hand ready as soon as he gives up. It's not like he could just shift the weight and let his cousin fall because it was the only reason his free arm is not broken. In his current condition, his arm is like a small twig balancing and supporting another weight. If he so much as to tilt, the weight would snap his arm like a twig. Without his only functioning arm, he might as well give up the match like he said in the beginning of the match. He would rather die than lose to his cousin, thus why the stalemate they have now. Amazingly, Hinata could still keep her balance while still in the air. The spectators wondered if this was meant to be a circus, that the two were just performers. However, the nervous sweat Neji's displaying and Hinata's glare tells them they were really trying to kill each other. Just when he was at his limits and reaching his breaking point, Hinata fainted, thus fell to the ground, and never got back up again. Ironically, he was only still standing because he couldn't move anymore. Seeing he is the only conscious contestant, Hayate declared his win. Neji wanted to sprout some fate nonsense, but seeing his injuries and his cousin not awake, he wasn't sure if fate took a break on him today. Gaara and Lee. Another change from the manga is Rock. Lee and Gaara's fight. Somehow the youngest son of the Kazekage didn't see Lee as threat, hence only bashed him aside. That was until he started using his gates, which the Sand Genin took seriously. However, Gaara's attention seems to focus on something else. Obviously, he probably sensed a lingering threat in the air, like a sleeping dragon, but just not knowing where he is. The Hulk does have that effect inside Naruto, hence how most animals avoid him, and due to Shukaku inside him, he may be a little bit cautious of his surroundings. Both his sibling too was a little concerned because their brother is a little quieter than usual and would have demanded blood for his mother. Still, the fight was quite spectacular, as in the end, the Spandex Genin loses conscious while still standing his ground. Even though he didn't win, he earned number of respect from his fellow Genins, and few of the Chunins and Jonins. Against any other Genin, he could probably won with ease. He was just unlucky he was paired against Gaara as his opponent. 1 month training break. After the preliminary, Naruto ended up wandering around the hospital to check up on his teammate, bumping into his sensei in the process. Taking the opportunity, he asked him if he will be training both he and Sasuke. Since they both passed the preliminary, it's reasonable to train for the finals. Unfortunately, Kakashi couldn't help him. His jutsus were just too advanced for the blonde, and he didn't know what to do with the Hulk neither. Not to discourage his student, the Scarecrow Ninja said that he would be winning the tournament either way. This statement took the blonde by surprise, as he thought Kakashi was saying he was useless. Seeing his words caught his student's attention, he clarifies what he had meant. All this time they were in the same team. Kakashi learned to read his students' habits, and Naruto is the most expressive, thus making it easy to know what he was thinking. The Jonin had to admit he is too complex for him to handle, and like Iruka did in the academy, it is better categorizing both Naruto and the Hulk separately. As Naruto, he has great potential, but due to his vast amount of chakra, it would be difficult for him to learn more advanced jutsus. Only Kage Bunshi was an exception because it only requires Jonin amount of chakra. Hence, he encourages him to work on his control, thus giving him some exercises as motivation. Taijutsu too weren't his speciality, thus he suggested his student to find some books on katas, or someone that specializes in them. Naruto seems to have some ideas, so Kakashi left him at that and introduced him to Ebisu, the elite tutor. Then again, he added, as himself Naruto had already an unfair advantage over the other Genins. He could always transform to the Hulk, then beat everyone black and blue, until they surrender. Most Jonin bet on him winning the whole tournament, including Kakashi himself, as he showed the blonde his tickets. While disappointed, Naruto was nevertheless happy for the support. As final piece of advice, the gray-haired ninja told him, winning isn't everything. He will need to both impress the judges and prove that he is Chunin material. Unfortunately, Kakashi wouldn't tell him what he meant. He said he will have to figure them out on his own. No personal training aside, Kakashi was not joking when he said most Jonin supports him. In fact, most of Konoha changed because of the Green Giant, hence, it's no wonder the Hulk gave everyone an everlasting impact. Not just shinobi. Even villagers couldn't wait to see him in the exam, as they too rooted for him, as they too interested to know if any Genin would be even a match. The Chunin exams isn't just any event, thus it would be no surprise everyone knew about it. Hence, Naruto and the Hulk entering is no secret to the village population. Some light-heartedly joked to the boy to go easy on other Genins. Others too encouraged him to do his best, as they too bet on him to win the tournament. It made the boy very happy finally getting the recognition he strives for all his life. People don't associate him with the QB anymore. Instead, they see him and the Hulk the same being. Sometimes they refer him as the Hulk, other times vice versa, so he was not feeling being replaced. Once people got past their hate, They began to accept him for who he is, hence they start talking about his antics. Being a ninja for several months makes him even more famous as he surprises them with both his abilities and strange ways in accomplishing the missions. His D-rank missions were often talked about among the village because many didn't think he would cut out for such menial tasks. Many had front row seats when the Hulk start demolishing building with ease. Thus it would be difficult to picture him painting a fence. Hence, when those whom hired Team 7 for missions start telling them how Naruto took over and finishing the job faster than his teammates, everyone was shocked. It was how most of his D-rank missions were known across the whole village. Team 7's most recent C-rank 2 were a hot topic among the shinobis, as they too were interested to know how the Hulk fare outside the village. Then again, most only wanted to know if Zabuza had shit himself when he was pitted against the giant. The news was widely spread to the local population. Some even had the blonde to tell them his story. Even he had not remembered any of it. Naruto learned the event from Tazuna and his sensei, so he more or less followed the situation. Since the news will earn the boy more fame and even better reputation, the Hokage see no reason to keep it a secret. It's about time Konoha repay the years of ill treatment, and since Naruto was not one for arrogance, the Sandaime was not worried. It's what he loved most about him. Even with the strength of the Hulk, Naruto still trains to prove himself. Jiraiya, Hot Spring Exchange. While it is true that using the Hulk would be an overkill on other genins, but Naruto was determined to prove himself as himself, thus hoped to improve his own abilities. For that reason, Kakashi introduced him an elite Jonin Ibisu, whom owes him a favor to guide and oversee his training. Thanks to the village's attitude change towards him, the two were more forthcoming with each other, and Ibisu seems to know how to explain the importance of chakra control. At least he got the first impression right by taking the boy for ramen as their initial discussion.
Unfortunately, due to mishap, the elite Jonin was knocked out by Jiraiya by interrupting his research. A little angry that his teacher was assaulted by the unknown person, naturally Naruto complains to the Sannin and demanding for compensation. Since he had incapacitated his current teacher, it would only make sense for him to take over his training. While Naruto didn't know who he is, but since he somehow manages to knock out a Jonin, then he must be strong. Hence why he kept on pestering him until he finally realized he don't know who he is.
Perhaps it's not often he gets the chance to introduce himself because everybody knows him. Thus, he was more enthusiastic. Unfortunately, his audience was not so impressed. In fact, Naruto thought he was mocking him, thus why he unconsciously transforms himself to the Hulk. First the ninja peeks in the women's bath, then he knocks out his sensei, and now he is making fun of him. No wonder Naruto's pissed. Sadly, Jiraiya was so absorbed in his performance he fails to see his summon trying to signal him before unsummons himself from the danger zone. The pervert was in the middle of his silly dance, where he had his eyes closed while rolling his head in a comical manner. As soon as he introduces himself as the Toad Sannin, he was promptly punched and sent crashing through the peak hole. When he wakes up, he would have cursed his luck for falling unconscious, because if he was going to get punched into the hot springs, he'd rather be awake to at least get an eye full of naked bodies. Then again, because of that stunt, he didn't even get to see whom had hit him. Having delivered his punishment, the Hulk blew air through his nostrils as if he was not impressed. "Puny Sannin," he says before turning to leave. It seems thanks to his unfortunate encounter with Orochimaru, both the Hulk and Naruto were a little sensitive with the title. Hence, why he didn't even let Jiraiya finish after hearing the word. However, before the Hulk can disappear from the scene, his actions weren't unnoticed. Obviously, it was the main reason why Jiraiya was there in the first place. Hence why there's panic within the women's bath when the pervert crashes through. Since he was both famous and infamous for his work, everyone recognizes him, thus came to the right conclusion what the Sannin's been doing. Somehow they came to the wrong conclusion that the Hulk was trying to protect their chastity. Chivalry may be frowned upon by kunoichis for how they spent years trying to prove themselves just as capable and strong to stand alongside their male counterpart. However, in this case, it was not entirely unwelcome. Every woman knew about the infamous author of Icha Icha, and where he gets his inspiration. Thus it was obvious why he's here. Since they are in a ninja village, thus it came as no surprise, many within the bath are kunoichis. Hence, it would not be a surprise when most wouldn't just run off and hide by the incident, thus giving the giant a show he would never forget. Especially Anko, as she stood without shame. She was the most daring as she was next to the broken fence and with her perky breasts pointing his way. It's her perfect little payback for the earlier mishap. She may not be able to physically harm him, but the look she got was priceless, thus why she didn't hold back in the teasing. The other kunoichis too giggles, as they too find it endearing and a little cute watching him squirm, then blush and pretend to look away. Like a little kid acting like he didn't see anything. He can hear them talk about his muscles, then about his other muscles, making him very self-conscious, especially when they talk about his rod. Not knowing what he should do, the Hulk jump away before it escalates any further. His quick getaway results in many laughter, and all coming from the kunoichis as they laugh to their heart's content. The Hulk may not have understood what they were talking about, but like any preteen, they get a little sensitive and self-conscious when others start talking about them. Hence, somehow he felt embarrassed, knowing they were all just teasing him. It's not every day. Anko gets to embarrass the giant, so she took every advantage she got. That was strange. I tried many times to flirt with the big guy, but never got such reaction. It was more like she was asking herself than her friends. In the past, she had tried to convince the Hulk to hand over the ninjas, but was never successful, thus she thought he just doesn't like women. Then again, she didn't have so much trouble with the boy Naruto, hence she took it as a challenge to catch his attention. Sadly, the giant was more interested in a bowl of ramen than her sexy appeal. Perhaps you needed more beautiful girls to get his attention. After all, he is quite big. Anko's friend too shows off her body. Maybe I should take some lessons from that blonde kid. I heard he can floor the Hawkage using his self-made sexy jutsu. Maybe I can use it to make a female version of the Hulk. She was quickly stopped by her best friend Kurenai as she bonked her lightly for the stupid idea. Then again, she wonders what she would look like in a female Hulk body, green, athletic, and with a slim waist was her ideal build. Her mind starts to drift to what her boyfriend Asuma would say. All her friends gave her the deadpanned look. Obviously, they knew her a little too well to understand what she is going through. She may act all proper and like an ice queen, but deep down she's just like any of them, hence why they got on so well. As the girls chat and poses to one another their best sexy poses, in which the Hulk would prefer, Jiraiya would have wished he was awake to see them. Too bad he was not, thus missed his golden opportunity. As for the perverted Sannin himself, his deeds were not forgotten. Since he liked naked flesh so much, the kunoichis decides to tie him up in the bath while casting an invisibility genjutsu over him. When he finally wakes up, he thought he was in heaven because instead of peeking from the other side, he is now in the same side of his dreams. His first thought was it must be one of his more enthusiastic fans that loves his work, thus offering this gift for him. Too bad he didn't think about why he was also tied up and secured in place. His mind were already too busy picturing all the heavenly scenes he is about to receive, thus thinking how to thank his fan by personally signing his autograph. Unknown to him, this was the time specially reserved for the too over-exuberant duo. Not that the two know about it, it was unanimously decided by all the bathgoers. Since the two always train for long hours when they came in, they thought everyone's finished, hence why wherever they arrive, it's always empty. Sadly, this news is only known by the locals, hence why Jiraiya wasn't aware of it. Gay isn't just a strong taijutsu specialist, he is also a great trainer. Thus, he advised his students to soak in the baths after the intensive workout. He explains that it would help them both to relax and rejuvenate their body. Naturally, only his favorite student Lee follows him wherever he go, while his other teammate Neji excuses himself, saying it's a clan matter, thus avoid joining them. Tenten too scares herself due to her gender difference, as she says she will have to bath separately. It was the reason why only Guy and Lee always show up together in the baths. Guy says it's a male bonding experience, guys telling each other their experience and stories. Very much like how men can learn about one another just by fighting each other with their fists. The two was sadly disappointed because they were the only ones there. Not one to be down so easily, the older spandex wearer cheers his student up, telling him they can have the whole bath for themselves. Nevertheless, and true to his words, Gay told Lee stories of his genin days, and how his father was still a genin to his death. This was a surprising news even for Lee, as he never heard about his sensei talk about his father. And yet it sounds very similar to his situation.
Unlike his famous rival's father Tsukumo Hatake, that is not only a genius, his strength is greater if not equal to the three Sanins. However, Might Guy's father Might Guy, unfortunately nicknamed the Eternal Genin. Yet in his final moment he had not only saved those that riddled him, he also managed to fend off the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist until help arrives. That reason Guy is telling his student this is because this is part of his father's legacy, hence why Lee must never use the art unless it's the last resort.
Unlike Kakashi's father Tsukumo Hatake, who is not just a genius but a prodigy that rival even the three Sanins, Might Guy's father Might Dai, however, was still a genin to his dying days. He was called the Eternal Genin for that reason, and yet in his final moment he not only saved the ninja whom had riddled him, he too manages to fend off 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Hence, why their secret can only be used in last and desperate moments. After the story, like always, Lee end up hugging his Gai sensei and sworn to train hard for the skills. Hence, why there is nothing illicit involved. Guy always takes his students seriously, but just a little too serious that others find it disturbing. If you ask anyone in Konoha that knew him, you will know that he is a great teacher and many respect him for it. Unfortunately for Jiraiya, he knew something was wrong when he started hearing male voices and immediately knew who they were. As spy master and coming from the same village, he knew Gai and his overabundant attitudes. While he respects him both as person and a ninja, for it was a very long road to get to where he is now. However, in this scenario, respect and like are two very different issues. It was for this reason no sane men would use the baths in this hour. The teacher and student duo had always thought it was free, due to no one coming this late, thus were happy to have the place for themselves. Since Gai believed that a nice bath after workout helps their body relax and rejuvenate, Lee happily shared his enthusiasm. Perhaps it was why he keeps calling it youth. While it was a great source of encouragement for the two, it was difficult for others to keep up that is outside their circle of understanding. Sadly for the Sannin, he had to endure their naked glory as they hug each other. There's nothing illicit between the two as they do have towels between them, but for someone with a creative mind like Jiraiya's, there no doubt where his imagination took him. Hence, why the results were devastating, as he wished he could mind wipe himself. Unfortunately, the Sannin did not have this luxury to make himself scarce. As one of the Kunoichi was a medic, she made sure he would endure entire manly process without blinking. Jiraiya was weeping silently as tears fall from his face. Maybe Inoichi can help him erase that image from his mind so he can stay innocent?
Since that incident, Jiraiya tried to find the kid again but couldn't find him anywhere in the village. Unknown to the Sannin, Naruto took it upon himself to seek help from the Rat Master Splinter, thus went back to the Forest of Death. Like the turtles, he is another resident of the forest that can communicate, and he is as wise as the way he speaks. For this reason, he is often the mediator for other animal residents and animal clans. Unlike the panda tribe that have their own elders, the monkeys and many other animals don't. Hence Master Splinter was often called to mediate their affairs.
It also helped the giant rat is incredibly strong. He may not hop around like his turtle students like a wild animal, but he made up for his experience. Naruto had often watched he spar against his students, so he knows he is very powerful. The turtles may be faster and much more energetic, but every movement from the master could easily disable each one of them. Hence the turtles had to work together just to hold their grounds. For this reason, the turtles too were some of the few top fighters in the forest. The pandas too were a disciplined bunch, thus able to form their own schools of their own art. The monkeys, however, while uncouth, they were more than made up for their imitation talents that later integrate them into their own. That's how the Hyugas found out their art being stolen by a gorilla during the Hinata incident. These were few of the noteworthy tribes from the forest, as they possess more humane attributes. Others, such as the elemental tigers mentioned in the past, were also strong. but they were more animal than those that can stand on their hind legs. It was the reason why Naruto has less interactions with them, but from time to time as he passes their territory, he would help out so most animals recognizes him. He too plays with the tiger cubs, but sees them more of a pet than a friend. Then again, it would be hard for him to differentiate the differences.
So anyway, Naruto spoke with Master Splinter and he agreed to train him how to fight with and against weaponry. However, he suggested the blonde to seek out the pandas too, because he believes the young man is better suited to their taijutsu and their meditation can greatly help him. Like in Konoha, the boy is also an interesting subject among the forest animals, thus nearly everyone knows what the only human among them been up to.
Only by the end of the week did Jiraiya find his wayward godson, and apologize for knocking out his temporary sensei. So as peace offering, he agrees to help train him as he had previously requested. Naruto was at first suspicious, but in the end he agrees to the offer. He really do need the extra help. He may not know who he is or what a Sannin is, but it's better than no one. Then again he hesitated because the Sannin's behavior is questionable. After all, who in their right mind would self-proclaim themselves as not a pervert, but a super pervert? Hey kid, I've been looking for you for a while. You are that pervert from the baths. It was the first thing that came to mind. Who you calling a pervert? I am a super pervert. Naruto didn't know what to say to that ridiculous declaration. Listen kid, I am sorry for knocking out your temporary sensei. So as apology I will teach you something useful. What do you say? Since his scarecrow sensei reads a perverted book, all the time the blonde guesses all strong ninjas are alike, so he couldn't be too choosy. Luckily for the Sannin, Naruto didn't punch him this time. Unfortunately, Jiraiya spoke too soon, as by the end of the day, he was a little curious about the Hulk, thus asked the kid for a demonstration. Seeing no harm in it, the whole village already knew he's the Hulk, so naturally he agrees. Thankfully, it was much easier to transform now. All he needed is just a little concentration. Sadly for the Sannin, the Hulk recognizes him, which he knew it was not such a great idea. Oh was all he got before the Hulk uppercuts him. Naturally, for comedy reasons, he again ended up falling into the same hot spring, which happens to have the same group of kunoichis there as the other day. So when Sannin woke up, he was just in time for the teacher and student, Guy and Lee, show as he cry river of tears. In fact, all three end up crying rivers of tears, but only for different reasons. Guy and Lee obviously were going about their youth antics, whereas Jiraiya having forced to endure all of it. In the end, Naruto split his time training with the Sannin, then the Rat Master and the Pandas. Jiraiya only knew he had been going in the Forest of Death, but didn't know the reason why. He had asked about it, but when the blonde mentions the Hulk likes to go there, the Sannin stops asking for more details. Obviously, the giant didn't seem to like him, so he tried not to bring him up, and often making himself scarce when he's around. Then again, Naruto too had low opinion of him because they are bashfully the same person. Only Naruto's more tolerate of him, whereas the Hulk was more expressive. Jiraiya can still remember when Naruto first summons Gamabunta after throwing him over the local chasm. Normally Naruto would have transformed to the Hulk, but due to fright, that instinct was buried, hence how he ended up meeting the Kyuubi and eventually get to summon the Toad boss Gamabunta. Unfortunately, the boss giant didn't believe him, thus making angry. Thus the Hulk ended up taking over. The Sannin was long gone when that happens. Whether he was hitting from Gamabunta or the Hulk is not known, but it's likely both. So when the Hulk instead of Naruto drops to his snout, the Toad was surprised by the green small giant. Naturally, even the Hulk is huge, he is still relatively small to the Toad boss. Angry that he was dismissed so easily, the Hulk answers Hulk summons Toad. Yeah, right. Gamabunta starts ordering the Sannin to show himself. That's it, Jiraiya. You better get out here and explain. Obviously pissed being ignored, the Hulk stomp him, sending Gamabunta face first crashing into the ground, before leaping off to do whatever he normally do. That's when Jiraiya decides to show himself and update his partner who that was. The Toad boss may not like how he was treated, but he liked the kid's attitude. The no bullshit attitude is just exactly how his gangster outlook should be. Tell the kid he can summon me and my family anytime. The Sannin was speechless because he will need to pick up his jaw first if he still wants to complain. The brat just sent Gamabunta to the floor and got approved by him, just like his father. Mutters the Sannin. Not that Minato beat the Toad boss's ass, but he got the Toad's approval on his first try too. So overall, it was a successful month. Naruto believes he is at least prepared to face anything. He had been training righteously, and even the Hulk did his part under the strict guidance of the pandas. The big guy was made to sit in meditative stance, practicing how to calm himself and maybe to synchronize with his other self. The Hulk may not know why he is doing it, but deep down instinctively, he knew he needs it, hence why he followed through with the ridiculous practice. It was the reason when the panda bashed him with its iron staff with spikes, the Hulk didn't kill him. Unconsciously, he knew he did something wrong, thus couldn't blame the elder animal. Apparently communication isn't much a problem between them. The pandas have many trainees, hence the Hulk only need to see what everyone's doing before copying them. The elder took him to the waterfall and obviously wanted to sit on the largest and empty stone as he tapped it with his staff. Even the water felt cold to the Hulk, but followed through with the exercise. It took a few tries as the elder smacks him a few times while points to his neighbors, showing him how it was done. The Hulk may not quite understand it, but after a while, he knew he had to sit still, hence how he managed to get through the exercise. Of course, it still took some time and much convincing from the elder with a badass staff. The aged panda too has its guts because he was not light in dishing out punishment every time. It didn't stop the Hulk from glaring at him while the elder held the glaze, daring him to do something. Thankfully, the Hulk backed down, but unfortunately glaring was not part of the lesson curriculum, thus he got another rack. While it did no damage to our green friend, it was nevertheless annoying. It was like being hit by a fly swatter, no matter how lethal it looked. The same for Naruto after the Hulk calms down, shrinking back to the him. He was shocked to see what the elder had in his hands, thus was more motivated to get on with the program. Unknown to him, the elder smirked, thinking his intimidation act might work also on their young cubs too. Of course, sometime later there was a silent exchange between the chief panda and the said elder. While it may look silent, in fact it was the language the animals used to communicate. But if one would listen carefully, there were some grunts and growls in there too. In human language, this is what they say. "Do you have to carry that stick around wherever you go?" Questions the chief. Thoughtfully, but sagely, the elder didn't quite answers the question. Nowadays, younglings forget how they should respect their elders as they used to. We just needed a little help, nothing wrong with that. The elder panda patted his spike iron staff, emphasizing his little help. "Those don't respect me will surely respect the staff," stomping it to the ground and alerting others' eyes to his monstrous staff. See. Naturally, all the eyes were drawn warily to the staff, making the panda chief to roll his eyes. Besides intimidating young trainees, it is a useful tool for getting from one place to another. It ended the conversation then as he walked away using the staff like a walking stick. The chief can only shake his head because most of his elders all have their own iron staff, turning it into some kind of tradition. Somehow making him look bad as he is the chief, so he need to get himself one too. Even some youngings asks him when they can get their own badass or kick-ass fight staff. He may need to find himself one too, if just for the looks, because a chief mustn't look bad since he is representing the tribe. Oh, make D rank before the exams. At the time, the Hokage was not overseeing the missions. Thus, like usual, the D-rank mission were handed out to low-ranking genins. It was another reason how Team 7 ended up with another catch, Tora mission. Having got the hang of the job, most members knew what they have to do.
Kakashi was sure that the Hulk had mellowed out since the wave mission, thus didn't think it would be a problem. Besides, Naruto had now better control over his emotions, so it shouldn't go like last time, right? The Jonin was partially right. It certainly didn't go like last time. It didn't take long for the mission to go underway, and somehow instead of his blonde student returning, the Hulk came to him. Kakashi can only sigh, but unfortunately the giant wasn't alone. In its hand he had an Anbu ninja with the mask Neko. Obviously the ex-Anbu captain recognizes her as she was one of his old subordinates. The Hulk had her head held in his fist as he dangles the ninja in front of Kakashi.
The Anbu knew it was useless to struggle, thus had her arms folded nonchalantly, as if waiting for the giant to eventually release her. Since it was pointless to talk or to fight, so she just let him do what he wanted and get it over with sooner. She had a feeling this is somehow one of those D-rank missions that the Hulk is too high-leveled for. No, that's Neko. We want a cat, not an Anbu. No ninja. Emphasizes the Jonin, trying to clarify their main objective so that the massive genin can understand. Neko guessed this is some sort of everyday thing. It still took a while to convince him, otherwise hence why the hesitation. In the end, the two watches as the Hulk leaps off to search for a new target. The Jonin wondered if he had missed anything. Before the two can start some light exchange between co-workers, there was already shouting and screaming from the distance. No doubt Kakashi knew it's something to do with his thick-headed student. Already preparing for the migraine that's about to come, the Jonin massages his face with one hand. It didn't take long for his transformed student to arrive, accompanied by a cat girl in his hand. The word accompanied would probably be the wrong choice of word, as she was not a willing participant, but there is very little she could do when she was held by the waist in the giant's hand. That was how the Hulk presented his catch. At least he didn't have the poor girl by the head like he did with the Anbu. No, 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 no. That is not an animal neither. We want a real cat? Somehow the Hulk had acknowledged his previous instructions and not bring back another ninja, but came back still with the wrong results. No fake ears, no fake tail, real fur and whiskers, a cat. He emphasized with his hands the actual size of a cat. This time Kakashi was more specific, hoping the giant finally understood what a cat really is.
As if a light bulb lights up in his head, he unceremoniously drops the civilian girl before leaping off. The sudden shift of gravity caused the girl to scream in fright but without injury. She couldn't berate the giant as he was long gone, so naturally she redirected her fury to Kakashi. Added fact that she recognized the local porn reader didn't help the Jonin's apology easy. Hence how she gave him a full course lecture for both his indecency and not teaching his student properly. Only after she was gone did the Hulk return. It was like one headache after another, and Kakashi can already see another popping up. It seems Naruto's luck carries over to his alter ego, thus missing out the chew-out session. Anyway, this time the Hulk brought back an animal that can somewhat called a cat. Technically it is a cat, hence why the proud look all over his face, obviously thinking he's finally got something right.
It walks on 4 legs, has functional cat ears along with the cute whiskers. On top of that, it has its own fur as well, a real tail, so obviously it must be the cat they were looking for, right? This time even the Anbu Neko seems to see the giant's thoughts. The big guy is just that easy to read. As matter of fact, he did follow every instruction Kakashi gave, even down to the size comparison, but sadly only from the Hulk's perspective. Kakashi knew he may have forgotten something because they don't want just any cat but the daimyo's cat. Then again, the so-called cat he brought back is in fact a huge tiger. Tora may be translated as tiger in Japanese, so he may have got it half right. However, the daimyo probably wouldn't trade Tora for a real Tora, so the Jonin wouldn't risk trying anyway. Who knows what the daimyo's wife's reaction would be? The worst case, probably, they would be chasing a loose tiger in the future. From the look of the animal, this could be one of the rare chakra tigers or element tigers. There were rumors of the Hyugas finding them in the forest of the death. Like the usual cases with the Hulk, the appearance of a huge tiger sets off a minor riot in the streets. Villagers scampers away and out of sight, hoping they aren't its target when it's loose. It's never a dull moment with the Hulk around. Kakashi sighs in defeat as he didn't know what to do with the giant. He should have done this right from the start. So he held out a photo of the real Tora, hoping the giant can at least distinguish the differences himself. The Hulk had to crouch and bend down to the same height, just to be on the same level. Then he also had to squint his eyes to see what he considers the microscopic picture before comparing it to the cat in his hand. Kakashi waited patiently because the Hulk had to check a few times before figuring out something was off. Somehow the animal in his grasp seems to see the mistake before him, hence the deadpanned look it gave the giant. The Jonin had to sweat drop. Even he could see the look the tiger is giving his student. Clearly it was saying, "Do I look anything like the cat in the picture?" Ignoring the tiger but seeing that he had got the wrong animal, the green giant tossed it away. After landing properly, the animal growled for the ill treatment, but one look from the Hulk was enough for it to leave quickly with its tail behind its legs.
With the dangerous animal now free, there was another chain of commotion as the villagers panicked while the Anbus gave chase. They never caught it, of course, as it manages to lose the ninjas and return back to its home. Thankfully, the Konoha's Eternal Gate Guardian duo Izumo and Katetsu managed to testify that the tiger did indeed left the village. At least they are doing their job right.
Back to the Hulk, Kakashi ignores the ongoing chaos. Konoha is already used them anyway. He calls out his other two students. Sasuke, Sakura, you both have already Madame Shizimi's cat, right? It was more of a statement than a question.
Yes, Sensei. We just wanted to see what Naruto would bring next, said the only female member of the team. Obviously they had been hitting there for a while, but it was a surprise that Sasuke followed along. Sakura admitted, it was kind of cute how he kept on trying despite his failures. Her statement earned her a snarled look from her transformed teammate. They both knew Naruto wouldn't do anything as long as they don't go too far with the teasing.
Both Genins have Tora already secured in her cage, as they kept themselves hidden to see the event unfold itself. It wasn't often they get to top Naruto in missions, thanks to his bizarre and ludicrous methods he used to complete them. Even Kakashi was sometimes baffled. Hence, when Naruto came back as Hulk, both Genins couldn't help but hidden themselves and watch the fireworks. Naturally, in the end, the green giant came back with a feline that is definitely not house-trained. Even the Uchiha couldn't help but smirked in the outcome, which pisses the Hulk off more. Somehow he hates the Uchiha for all the insults.
Especially that aggravating smirk that his Uchiha teammate uses every time they compete against one another. So angry, the Hulk kicked the merchant's cart, sending it flying out of the village. Of course Kakashi had to pay for the wares. The competitiveness of his two students is going to bankrupt him. Like talking about the weather, the two Eternal Gate Guardians spoke to one another. Wherever it lands, it is definitely going to hurt. You are right, my friend. I feel sorry for the poor fool on the other end of it. Even worse, I feel even sorrier for me not being there to see the aftermath. Small scene in Fire Country Prison.
Somewhere in the Fire Country Prison, Mizuki is again, thanks to the previous incident, couldn't get anywhere with his escape plan. Worst of all, the guards searched him every time, making sure he isn't smuggling anything for any of his plans. Pissed and cursing the demon boy for his ill fortune, he shouted to the gods, "Give me a shovel, give me a hammer, give me anything to get out of this wretched place. Ask and you shall receive." The cart full of tools came smashing down on him. Most of the prisoners and guards tends to stay away from him, believing he's somehow cursed by some evil spirit. So no one was surprised when a cart out of nowhere came crashing down on him. In fact, most inmates were quite annoyed by the crazy ex-Chunin that's always talking and muttering to himself. Hence, it was a breath of relief when he was shutted up, no matter how abnormal it was. So nobody cared, as they knew the staff will come and dig him out. At least the idiot would be in the hospital ward for a while. Tiger Tribe. Like in the village in the Forest of Death, a few of the cubs too brought up the incident to their elders. Mama, the big green human took uncle away. Relax, pup, it's probably some misunderstanding. Your uncle will be back later. Having met the giant many times, she knew the big guy is harmless. In the beginning, the Hulk had fought their entire tribe, defeating every one of them. However, when he got to her and seeing her babies, he decided to back down. That was the first time they encountered each other. The other times he helped her when she was alone, and being bullied by a pack of hyena. He came in, and literally gave them the boot before walking off. Later Naruto came around and started playing with her cubs, so most of the tribe grew a little friendly with him. It was another reason why the tiger he took looked deadpanned and went along with it. Besides, it was no use to struggle. Like the Ambu warrior, he too is an elite of his tribe. Hence, it was the reason why the ninjas couldn't catch him when he was released, as he made his way back into the forest. The big cat chuckles as he made the ambus chase him in circles. It's not often he gets to play, so it took him a little longer to return. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji. Hyuga. The fight starts off with Neji against our blonde hero as the two contestants remain in arena, while others went up to the waiting platform. You know, without your transformation, you are just a failure. The match has yet to start and Neji is already belittling his opponent. He had heard and seen the Hulk. He is just proving everything was predetermined, just as he is fated to lose without his transformation. Without the drug coming out of a bottle, you are nothing.
Is that right? It was surprisingly calm to those whom knew him as the most impatient and easily excitable genin. It's good thing that I don't plan to transform to beat your ass. Care to prove me wrong? It is a shock to those living in Konoha because Naruto could easily defeat his opponent had he just turned into the Hulk. To those new in the village, they wonder what transformation a kid could do. Ninjutsu had already evolved to a point where new techniques may arise per century, so everyone's eager to see what this genin will show them. If Neji had planned this, it is certainly working to his advantage, but his surprised and angered expression tells them otherwise. However, what Naruto do next surprised not only his opponent but every spectator that are familiar with him, especially the Hokage.
Taking out a scroll, like Tenten had done in the preliminary, the blonde summons a bamboo staff, twirling it in his hand before stomping it to the ground. It produces a hearty-sounding thud as it hits the floor, making everyone's heart pound like it resonates with the stike. At the same time, his action created a light tremor felt to those near him. This spectacle raised a number of eyebrows, but an increasing interest from the so-called ninja professor. Since the aged leader uses also the staff, he sees more than just the obvious display of showmanship. The weapon, for instance, it may seem like any regular and common bamboo, but it was finely crafted for combat purpose. Unlike the young Hyuga, the Sandame wouldn't push it off as some old panda's chew toy, because he can sense the similarities in chakra-conductive metal when chakra was pumped through it. Usually such material would be like chakra paper, which would be destroyed after one use. But the professor believed there's more secrets behind it. Normal bamboo would break easy, hence why it is uncommon for it to be made into weapon. While it may not be as powerful as his own adamantine staff, but it was nevertheless interesting for the Sandame.
Weapons aside, the way his grandson figure handles the staff before stomping it shown not only skill but also power. Without years of practice and training, the staff is just like a long stick, especially one that is as tall as Kakashi. Like using a chopstick, it's not something one can master overnight or just a few months of practice. It is true that you may not be catching a fly with it like in the movies, but simply to pick up various objects require skill as well as experience.
Even the use of shadow clones wouldn't give the same result the boy is showing now. One such evidence is the grip and power he had demonstrated just now. The little twirl show excellent hand coordination that needed months if not years of balance and uses of the weapon. However, the sounding stomp will require strength and power, which could be used to measure his actual skill. It's like a double-edged sword. The power applied would generate equal feedback, hence would require experience and skill. A novice would result in numbed hand or shock to his limb depending on how badly it was performed. Another evidence is if Naruto is asked to show his hand, the Sandame has no doubt there will be many calluses all over his palm. Just like Rock Lee, hard work will leave a mark on one's body. Thus, it's nothing to be ashamed of. The storage scroll is obviously Jiraiya's gift for his godson, since the Sannin is also a seal master, thus explains how Naruto got it. Sealing scrolls may be common in ninjas. It is, however, not used by genins unless you visits the weapons store often. Since there's hardly any report of him entering one, the Hokage assumed it was his student that gave it to him. Back to the arena floor, Neji is still sprouting nonsense. You think bringing yourself a big stick would help you change your fate. Your fate is predetermined, just as you are below me. It is true, the weapon itself is taller than Kakashi, thus at least double Naruto's height. Obviously, Neji uses that fact to taunt and get a rise out of him.
A dead last will always be a dead last. There's no way this would be an even match. You might as well give up. However, since bringing out his weapon, Naruto had stopped talking nor respond to any of his jibes. As a result, it's only making Neji angry to be ignored by a commoner. Knowing he is this year's dead last only further infuriates him.
The art of the staff.
Unknown to his competitor or those that knew him, Naruto learned the art of the staff almost as long as he is the Hulk. It was all thanks to this alternative self discovering the Forest of Death that he too became a regular visitor. When it happened for the first time, the Anbus that followed him panicked. They almost deploy the entire Anbu squad and charge in the dangerous site, but thankfully by then Naruto found his way back in without a single scratch.
After a few times, the Hulkage decides to give his ninjas some slack and have them wait outside for the boy. Anko and her squad had tried to follow or track the big guy to see what he was doing, but none were ever successful. The forest creatures were just too dangerous. It was one battle after another, just as the Hyuga elites had reported. Regretfully, they never find out what lies deep within the mysterious woods. Only those strong can continue, and they never bothered trying to map the entire forest. Hence, during exam times, only Jonins and Hokages were present to oversee the preliminary. Still, they have many Anbus guards, so they didn't have too much trouble getting to the exam site. Then again, they knew the less dangerous paths, so they don't get into the creatures' territories. So in the end, the tracking team gave up. Since the boy always come out unharmed, there's no point sending good men-women into pointless danger. Then there's the Hinata incident, and the Hyuga elites' involvement. On that very day, it was not just the Hyugas that was humiliated. The Team Panda that fought and lost to them too received his own wake-up call. Since that day onwards, the panda was always seen doing the same kata day in and day out, over and over, tirelessly.
Coincidentally, that clearing happens to be near the path Naruto took to return to the village. Thanks to the loud stomping and the strange sight of a panda doing some sort of dance, that it attracted our curious young hero's attention. That's how two unlikely friends first encountered each other. With his Hulk condition, he was exempted from the academy for a while, hence he has nothing better to do. He couldn't believe he would be saying it, he's even missing Iruka's boring lectures. So when he's in the forest, he took it upon himself to explore the place while at the same time discovering the creatures that's been living in the forest. This of course only after finding out they wouldn't attack him under normal circumstances. That's how he came across the huge panda that's always training. It was scary at first, thus why he tries sneaking around hoping to avoid eye contact. Day by day it was the same scene Naruto came across, as the panda never missed a single day in training.
Seeing he was ignored even after he stepped on a twig, he became curious, thus ended up watching the whole training. He had seen some sword-wielding ninjas doing something similar, so he knew the panda is training. The more he sees, the more impressed he was at the animal. It was like 1, 2 punch followed by 1, 2 kick, then turn around like it was moving on the next target. When he returns back to the village, under normal circumstances he would have told someone. Sadly, at the time he had no acknowledgement from neither the ninjas nor the villagers. His initial transformation triggered a negative reaction within the village. Only the ninjas dared to approach him, but they too afraid to provoke his transformation, hence minimized their interaction. Only after the clans got themselves involved did others treated him like normal, thus finally acknowledges him. Hence in the beginning our lonely hero can only kept what he saw to himself. Besides, not many people would believe him anyway. Giant panda doing kung fu sounded ridiculously enough. Even he himself wasn't sure if he should believe what he saw, and if it had all just been a dream.
Well, if there are mutant turtles walking on their hind legs, then he shouldn't be surprised by pandas knowing kung fu. Speaking of his turtle friends, he did promise not to reveal to anyone of their home. So even when there's someone he could talk to, he wouldn't have said a word because it's his ninja way. Still, he couldn't get the kata off his mind. It looked pretty amazing, thus start trying them out himself. It's how it got him started on the panda tribe's art. Since then he took every opportunity he can to visit the clearing and try imitating the moves that the panda is unknowingly showing him. However, unknown to him, his actions weren't as hidden as he thought he was. The teen panda had been aware of him since day one. Like most animals, he can smell his scent even from a distance. Thus how he knew the boy is also the same giant that recently came to their forest. Since the human child isn't transforming nor doing him any harm, the panda ignore him and continue in his own training. It went on for a few days until the humans start imitating his punch and kicks that perked his interest.
What interested the animal wasn't because he can do the kata. It's nothing special, as the monkey and apes can copy them the same way. The impressive part is the kid's ability to keep up and his endurance. The kata may not be all that difficult, but the workout behind it was. Instead of the difficulty, the kata focuses on strengthening the body, its balance, and at the same time pushing the body to its limits. Not every one of their pandas can handle this particular set. Only he himself, a prodigy with dedication, managed to push himself this far. Yet the small human child followed him, step by step, and continued as long as he had.
As for the kata itself, it was one of the fundamental basics and teachings from their tribe. The pandas believes in strengthening the body before learning any technique, hence why such katas were developed. They believe there's no point in teaching how to fight unless your body can handle it. Their philosophy is similar to building a house. Without a solid foundation, no matter how high you aim to build your house, it would eventually tumble. Learning martial arts is the same. You can learn all the moves, but without the strength to back it up, it would be useless.
The opposite can be said with the apes and monkeys, as their concept is based on adaptation. Similar to the Uchihas, they were good in copying and imitate opponents' style, which they later assimilate as their own. There are no right or wrong ways in martial arts, as many of the original arts were learned by tests and trials. Even the wise elders from the panda tribe admitted that the apes and monkeys were better in some areas.
Both ideals have their own ups and downs. The apes may know many ways to hit an opponent, but a warrior panda only needed one solid hit to finish off their foe. Not that apes were weak or the pandas were not skilled, it's just the two tribes lead different paths in their arts. Besides, there are no sure way to measure which style is better, only the user and his efforts can give you a small glimpse of an answer. Everyone's different, therefore only those individuals can show you their own accomplishments. Coming back to Naruto, for over the weeks the majority of his time were spent on following the panda's katas. Since he can't go to the academy until he can control his other self, he still hoped to get trained, thus he thought following the animal's movements could help him. So when he eventually returns to Iruka's class, he would be impressed. If everything works out, he may even score a win against one of his classmates. It went on for days to weeks until one day, without him knowing, the animal appeared next to him. Naturally, like anyone would do, he screamed like a girl. His overreaction only amuses the panda, as it made him raise his eyebrow.
Had it been anyone, Naruto would have tried turning the table around, blaming them for scaring the crap out of him. However, this being here not only massive, it is also a panda, and sadly, there's also the language barrier. As the turtles had explained to him, only very few of the forest creatures can speak human. Thankfully, seeing it's not meant him any harm, our hero can only blush with embarrassment because he's the only one making a big deal out of it. Then again, he's the one in the wrong. Stealing techniques without permission is a kind of disrespect. Luckily, that's not the reason the black and white animal came to him. After enough smirking, the panda steps forth and show him a small sequence of moves before stepping back. The panda gave a small bark before holding his palm out like an invite. The sequence was short and simple. Only a few moves were involved. You want me to do that? Naruto guessed right as the panda nods in response. Seeing no reason to decline, he repeats the same sequence before looking back. However, to our young prankster's surprise, the panda shook his head, thus repeats again the same moves. Not seeing where the problem was, he mirrors the motion side by side. Only this time they are facing the same direction. He found out the panda is rotating its paws clockwise, whereas he did his anti-clockwise. Now he understands the animal is trying to correct him. He repeated the correct sequence, thus earned himself an approval smile from the panda. Even if it's from an animal, it's the first time he was acknowledged, and that someone took time to teach him. So it's understandable why he was so happy. Since then, the two were often seen practicing side by side. A few times he even trained in the rain, but seeing the rain water dripping down the panda's facial fur, and it's constantly wiping its eyes. Naruto thought of an idea and got him a straw hat, hoping it would keep the water off its face. There was a time the panda thought it was strange the kid with strong ramen breath suddenly dropped its scent. At the time he didn't think too much into it, believing the human kid found something different as replacement diet. Then shortly around a week later, the human kid brought him the straw hat, and strangely the strong ramen scent once again surrounds him. Sadly, he didn't quite make the connection then, but he liked the headwear as it somehow fits him nicely. It wasn't until later he finds out the story behind the simple gesture, and it was only by chance after talking with the turtles. Apparently, it's all started near the ramen maker Tuchi Ikiraku. As usual, the four amniotes uses their ninja training and disguises to sneak into the human village for their favorite takeout, pizza! They were interrupted in their quest by the familiar voice of their favorite visitor. Unlike the local villagers, the turtles liked the kid, thus why they befriended him despite the boy's alter ego. Aside from the Hulk, they have also learned about the sinister energy inside the boy from their wise master. The four were too young when the QB attacked, but the rat master had seen the event and heard how humans conceal chakra beasts, such as QB, into infants, making them jinchuriki, human sacrifices. It was a despicable action, as the child would usually end up as an outclass to his peers. As much as the four brothers didn't want to believe it, they had seen the looks the humans gave to the boy, and avoided him like he's plague.
Those humans are mean. The others didn't voice their own thoughts, but they couldn't agree more. Sadly, they cannot interfere, as according to their master the boy needs to find his own path. Like the path of fighters and martial artists, as fellow warriors they understood a little what their father figure is saying. Naruto will have to work hard to get his fellow humans to accept him. However, it doesn't stop them from inviting the kid over and share their favorite pizza with him. They couldn't help but remember their master's last words on this topic. The child will be fine, his guardian will make sure of it. The four can only stare one another, all thinking the same thing. What guardian? The kid lives alone. Too bad their master always likes to talk in riddles, but thankfully he was never wrong.
So all they could do was to keep an eye out for the poor kid. At the same time, they couldn't help respecting him. Despite being on his own, he always turned up with a smile. Day in and day out, the kid kept a happy face, but deep down they know it was full of sorrow.
So when they heard him talking inside the ramen stand, they couldn't help listening in their conversation. Naruto, are you feeling alright? You have been ordering a lot less ramen than you usually do. If you keep it up like that we would be bankrupt, joked the ramen maker. Not to worry, old man. I am just saving up for a friend. In less than a week I will order my usual again, chirped the blonde child. Happy that the boy is making friends, Tuki let the boy have another bowl on the house. Like the Hokage, the ramen cook too have a soft spot for him.
It's how the panda eventually came to learn the story, thus connecting the dots. He thought the fading ramen scent was him quitting the silly noodle dish as diet. But it was actually because he was saving up to buy him the hat. Just as his elders often says, every small things are worthy of attention. The hat may not seem like such a big deal. It's actually the thought that counts, and our panda friend finally able to understand a little of his elders' words. Feeling he should repay something in return for his kindness, the panda took him to see his elders. It had always been his plan, but thinking they were traditionalists, he hoped to come up with a more profound reason before bringing them a human child. However, after learning about the kid's touching and selfless act, he decides to take the matter into his own hands. Sod tradition. If they don't agree, I will just teach him myself.
When they got there, he was surprised that the elders were expecting him. They claimed that his actions were already foretold by their wise one. Somehow the pandas' hierarchy system are like Jiraiya's toad summons. They too have their own elders and sage advisor. Their sage may not have the mystic ability to tell the future like the toad summons, but they were proven to be very wise in their own ways. Their lifestyle were also like the monks trying to reach enlightenment. It is also believed that their sage were older than the founding of Konoha. Similar to the monks, they believe in the balance and acceptance, hence why they wouldn't turn away anyone despite he is human. Like the prodigy panda, they too can sense the malicious energy inside him. Instead of outright rejecting him, they welcomed him. Unlike humans fearing the unknown, the warrior pandas likes face them. They consider this an opportunity, because without challenge there will be no growth, thus nothing to be learned.
It's not like they wanted to use the human child. Far from it, they wanted to help him. Everyone's born with a purpose, so from what they see in Naruto, they believe he is extra special. Human and animals were not born to be good or evil. It's their actions that defines them. Hence, with QB and Hulk as his burden, Naruto will have a tough path ahead of him. Having learned about the incident with Green Giant and Little Human Girl involving their prodigy panda, they had kept track of the three. Since the human girl never returned, they only have the news of the giant and one of their panda training together. It wasn't hard to see where it would go next. The elders were rather surprised it took him this long to bring the human child. Training a human child would be an interesting change, and the giant that came with the package is also a bonus. Hence, why they were more amused by the ordeal than to outright reject the idea.
However, they have one condition before they can officially take him in, and that is for the kid to learn all the basic katas of the pandas. At first the prodigy panda was worried, but after hearing the condition he couldn't help but put on a face full of smiles. The kid already knew the basics, he copied them of me when I was training outside. He could even do most of the more advanced ones. They may know the two have been training together but not in detail. Also, to learn most of the katas in a few months were unheard of. Hence they wanted to see it with their own eyes.
Before they can ask for a demonstration, they suddenly realize the fatal flaw in their plan. Just how do they communicate with a human child? Rolling his eyes, the young panda points to Naruto, catching his attention, then moving his finger to the clearing. Then he proceeds to set himself into a stance before turning his head back to the boy. It was reasonable to assume they wanted a demonstration. Thus Naruto did what they have practiced every day, as accurate as he can remember them. Thankfully, they have different starting stances in their kata, thus making the evaluation process much easier. They were very impressed. Even the higher level kata was done flawlessly and executed without any show of hesitation.
As per agreement, Naruto is now an honorary member of the tribe. Not that he know it, but more or less the same as friends and maybe perhaps family to him, so it doesn't really matter. One thing that is most important is that they have accepted him. He understands this as the panda that lead him here gave him a good thumb up sign. Despite he's human, the sense of joy is contagious, thus causing those around him to share his happiness. All the elders too truly believe this is one human that is really as special as their wise one calls him. Obviously his integration into the tribe isn't without mishap, especially when he was introduced as someone considered as the trainees' betters. Naruto was praised for his excellent performances as well as learning the higher level katas and all within several months. Then he was placed next to the instructor and in front of the trainees so they can use him as example. Sadly the growls and grunts were lost on our human friend, otherwise he would have known in advance just how much trouble it would get him into. Naturally, after the workout and out of sight of the instructor, our blonde hero is cornered by the very group that was training with him. However, unknown to them, their actions had already anticipated and watched by the lead instructor. They were never stopped only because the elder wants the situation to play itself out. Aside from teaching their cubs the lesson of humility, it's to make sure all their trainees give the human boy the respect he deserves. Soon they will realize that something smaller than they were is not something they should look down on. Apparently, like all youngsters, this particular group were especially arrogant and their instructor have some trouble reeling them in. Had it not been the Hulk, the elders would have to devise some other drastic measures. Thanks to the forest of death, there's always some powerful creatures around, so there's never any shortage of resources. As for poor Naruto, he was shocked to be surrounded by towering pandas where one steps forth while growling and barking meanly at him. Sadly, what it said was lost in translation as he was then shoved around like they were trying to goad him to fight. One push went too far, thus sending him headfirst into one of the training pillars. There he lie unmoving in a hunched position. Most thought he's just a weak human if he goes down in one shove. However, they knew something's wrong when he starts to change and his body starts to expand. It's already too late for the lead panda as he stood the closest to Naruto. He was just responding to the other's shock when a fist slams into him sideways, sending him crashing through several trees before coming to a stop. It was a one-hit KO as everyone stares in the direction their alpha flew off. Their reaction turns out to be a huge mistake as after knocking out the leader his Urk is now on them. Grabbing the closest by the foot, the Hulk proceeds to swing the poor fool of a panda into his peers, knocking 4 of them out. Not even stopping, the panda is then threw into another mass of the gathered group. They were literally bowl over like bowling pin inside a bowling alley. The only thing different was the Hulk throwing the ball like a cannon, thus you can imagine the aftermath. The remaining ones tries to run but none could outrun the Hulk. They were all ended up getting thrashed one way or another. Taking their eyes off the giant was a mistake as the Hulk would leap and land on them like a step stone. Those with brains tried playing dead or unconscious to prevent another beatdown. Sadly they were all trained as warriors, therefore there's at least 1 or 2 knockdowns before they decided all is lost. When there's nothing left to beat, the Hulk leaps away and disappear wherever he wants to be. Comically, the once proud training site of the tribe is now littering with heavily bruised and sprawling pandas. The unluckier ones were left struck in walls or just head first into dirt. After a while, only something resembling small chuckles can be heard as the group slowly pull themselves back together. He came out like he was taking a stroll. With a huge smile, the elder claps to get their attention. So, what have we learned today? All he got was groans from everyone. It seems this kind of surprises were frequent in their development. Nothing could prepare them to find out the real identity of their mystery giant was in fact just a small human child. They have been taught to expect the unexpected and to respect those that are smaller than themselves. Most important of all, there's always someone or something stronger. Reality is cruel as it can drop down on them like the Hulk had just demonstrated. Whether it was power or speed, none of them could match the monster that just left. All their skills and all their training were worthless as every move made on the giant crumbles into non-existence. Sadly, they also realize no matter how hard and how much they train, it wouldn't do them any good. Those were the hard lessons they have to face today as the elder treat and bandage their injuries. As individuals everyone is weak, it was the reason their panda art have fighting formation for large groups. Like the turtles in teamwork, the panda formation is like a formidable wall. They have different formations for different purpose, hence why even Master Splinter respects their style. Teamwork isn't easy as it sounds, as the more members on the team the messier it gets, hence why formation and purpose are important so one couldn't get in the way of another. One of their most famous formation would be the yin-yang formation, where 18 pandas formed a square formation. The shape isn't important, it's the style they use that's mostly impressive, as half of the members uses yin style, soft, and the other half yang style, hard. It is even more troublesome to their enemy as they don't know whom is using the hard style, whom the soft style. On the next day, the instructor could have laughed outright as every assembled panda have either bruises or bandages all over them. One particular panda may have a black eye or two. Since they are panda, it's difficult to see the dark rings around their eyes. However, when one stood with a giant band-aid over its snout, it's not hard to guess where he got hit. Sadly, they are training to be elites and warriors, thus one little squabble wouldn't stop them continuing their daily riddle. Then to their horror, that little blonde menace showed up again for training. A little embarrassed, he was found hiding just outside of the clearing. Only when the instructor waved him in did he come forward. He may not remember what his other half did when he passed out, but seeing the others' bandaged appearances, it's clear the Hulk sent them the right message. Hence why our blonde hero wasn't sure if he's still welcome anymore. This time everyone gave him a wide berth as he made himself to the same position he was yesterday. They can try getting angry, they can complain, but they sure hell won't pick another fight. In just one single meeting, the Hulk gave them an experience they will never forget. So until such a time they think they can challenge him, the little blonde human will be considered alpha among them. At first everyone thought the human kid was just part of the elder's scheme to get them beaten up. However, as time goes on and the kid continues to work hard, the atmosphere starts to change. The elder's right, the refreshing change will help them reevaluate the meaning of their training and their hard work. As teenagers, it's easy for them to derive into false belief, hence why the elders needed the Hulk as catalyst to break them from their current path. Naruto is like a reminder of their younger days as he shows them what it was like when they first started their training. Not to forget his diligence, and as the group watches whether they like it or not, they will see his improvements, thus pushing them to try to excel him. They may not realize it. Naruto was put among them not just for him to learn from the tribe but also for others to be inspired by him. Subconsciously, willing or not willing, they wouldn't want to be surpassed by someone smaller and weaker than they are. Watching the kid working out among them and then afterwards made them see how undedicated they have been. Having heard that the kid tried so hard because of recognition among his human peers and becoming Hokage. Especially after hearing the kid was dead last from his human school made them felt very ashamed in their own progress. Over the months the elders continues to watch over their behavior, attitude and progress in the art. The group may not realized it yet, but deep down they have already bonded with the small human child and accepted him as one of their own. There were many subtle evidences as they all unconsciously followed the human's lead while trying to surpass him one way or another. They may not show it openly, but should Naruto ever gets into a fight, there's no doubt in the elders' mind every one of them will come charging. The same can be said for Naruto. Between Konoha and the Forest of Death, there's no way he can give one up over the other.
As usual, their wise one is always right. Putting the human kid among their trainees was the right decision for both parties. Not only did the kid learn from them, their young pandas too gets to interact with him, thus understand. There's no difference between them despite their size difference. Many had wondered why the child tries so hard when he has already the Hulk.
Naturally they couldn't ask him because of the language barrier, so the turtles gave them his answer. Apparently the turtles already asked the same question and the blonde tells them he wants others to see him as himself. Turning into his giant form to fight may be easy, but he felt it's not his own. Like becoming the Hokage, he believed there's no shortcuts. They were all being trained as warriors. They can understand hardship and its difficulties, but if there is an easier path, there's no doubt all of them would have taken it in a heartbeat. After learning what the human kid had said about shortcuts made them re-evaluate their own thoughts of their own training. Training is hard, but it's mindset that truly defines their accomplishments, hence why even their elders were impressed. You can go through all the workout and not know why, but for those whom understand why the workout is being done or those whom excels. They may not want to admit it, but the human kid's words hit them hard and none wanted to be outdone by a stupid and shrimpy kid. For this reason the elders believe it's time to move on to the next phase, weapons, more advanced combat training and at the same time new site. Training dummies, combat arenas, weapons. The entire area was specially built for this purposes. You can literally see stars in Naruto's eyes as the odd training ground came into view, especially one littering with vertical wooden poles as he had never seen them in his village. Two pandas were squaring off while balancing on those poles, and each pole has only enough room for one foot to stand on. It was amazing no one fall off as they fight expertly and without an ounce of hesitation. The site was designed to test the trainees' coordination as well as body balance. At intermediate level they should learn to mind their surroundings while in states of combat. Had they trained diligently in their katas, their body should be prepared for the obstacles before them. In order to successfully fight on these wooden poles, they have to keep their eyes on their opponent while remembering the positions of the poles. They have seen their seniors sparring against one another. They seems to have known where everything were, hence why the fight looked natural. There were jumps, flying roundhouse kicks and even backflips. It was simply just too amazing because one missed step they could fall into the waters below. So over the years, Naruto slowly climbed the ranks among the tribe, but his skills were never revealed to Konoha. He tries every opportunities to show off, but his Hulk side always took his glory. He's just too excited for his own good. Only Iruka's boring history lesson he was himself. Therefore anyone can imagine his frustration over the years, but he never gave up his training with the pandas. As for his weapon knowledge, the pandas were very strict in their rules. Like his shinobi headband, the staff symbolizes its mastery, hence he's not allowed to fight or carry it outside of training. He had attended their ceremony and watched the exam with his other peers pandas, thus he too understands their custom. He may not be a panda like them, but since they all treated him as one of them, it only makes sense to follow their custom as sign of respect and gratitude. Like his Nindo in becoming the Hokage, he wants to earn everything. Naruto may have learned most of the styles from the pandas, but over the free period he has in the Chunin exam he also trained with the turtles. It was the reason why the Toad Sannin couldn't find him. As teamwork goes, not even the best team specialists from Konoha can defeat the four mutant brothers. Their combination attacks and coordination are just that good as they trained and practiced with one another for years. Having discussed the matter with the pandas, Master Splinter respectably convinced the panda elders to let Naruto use their style and staff skills outside their territory. They all knew he will be participating in the Chunin exam, therefore they were more than happy to agree, especially when it is asked by the respected Rat Master. Since the pandas' style were more refined than his own, the Rat Master has nothing to teach him. However, what he can offer is to polishing what he has, thus how Naruto was pitted against all four of his students at the same time. From what Naruto can understand, it didn't matter whether he win or lose, his goal is for him to get used to fighting extreme conditions. In order to advance he will need quickly adapt and apply his training to actual combat situations. In the end, just as the wise rodent master had predicted, our hero was forced to change his ways in both handling his staff and best positions in defending himself. By the end of the month, he managed to hold his ground for at least a minute before being overpowered.
The turtles fought either one-on-one, one after another, tag-teamed, or even all four at the same time. Naruto had to switch his stances many times depending on the situation while Master Splinter supervises. What the master can see, he nodded in approval as the human child reduced a number of openings in his defense after every fight. It was a vast improvement before they started, hence he knew he's nearly ready.
His danger sense too were improved as they attack him in simulated environments where he had to deal with unknown attacks. Even their rodent master were surprised at how good they were able to conceal themselves. In the swarm they were green, hence they can hid in the mashes or hang from the vine. Only when they move to strike will you know they are there.
Unknown to their master, the four brothers often uses that to sneak into Konoha as they order their favorite pizza. With the way the Aburamaze likes to dress, no one suspect they were in fact turtles in disguise. Seeing their strange getup, the villagers probably thought they were crossbreeds between an Aburame and Akamichi. They look like an Akamichi thanks to their oversized shell, and with the Hulk around, they were no stranger to strangeness. Thanks to the extra classes in Panda's meditation, Naruto is now also calmer, thus more focused. Aside from the physical training, the pandas also believes in the balance, hence why meditation is part of their discipline. It's the yin and yang philosophy, and they use it as part of their tribe symbol like the color of their fur. Black and white, good and evil, male and female, they were all two sides of the same coin.
They also thinks the key to enlightenment is a clear mind. They were not wrong in this aspect as humans, and summons too uses the same philosophy. For that reason our blonde hero was forced to endure the boredom of sitting for hours as part of his training. It was also done right after the strenuous physical exercise, thus making it even more difficult for him after the rush of adrenaline to his system. Sadly, Master Splinter too agreed that it was an excellent practice, so Naruto can't complain as the Rat Master explains why it was necessary. The body needs to learn how to slow down and calm itself after intensive workout. As final gift for his accomplishments, the pandas held his graduation exam early. It was basically to show his mastery on the weapon he had chosen by pitting him against four members of the warrior class panda examiners. Thanks to his training against the turtles, his skills were more than enough, thus receives his own bamboo staff. It was an unusual ceremony because he was the only human and outsider ever been rewarded and accepted by the tribe. The staff itself may seem just like any normal staff, but one should never underestimate the things made from the forest of death. Like the other vegetation in the forest, the bamboos there grew with chakra of the first Hokage. Rumor suggested they were sage chakra, hence how the forest came alive. Therefore the bamboo harvested there will not be only strong and durable, they should allow energy to flow through them like chakra metal does. Naruto may yet to know the full value of his gift, but through the exam, there's a possibility he will discover a little of them. Gentle Fist versus the Staff. Neji's patience was wearing thin as he found himself annoyed by the failure's statement. Knowing the blonde's only advantage is to transform himself into the giant, the Hyuga find it insulting he would fight him with a weapon, not just any weapon, a bamboo stick. Having learned his lesson from what he considers as his cousin's sneaky blow last time, this time initiates his attack first. While less impressive than Hinata's, he manages to cut the distance and came close in hitting his opponent.
That was until Naruto disappears from his vision. He has yet to activate his Byakugan, but he is experienced enough to know his opponent didn't dodge to neither left or right. Hence he looked up and found the blonde crouching on top of his own staff. Even more amazingly, he managed to stay up there without losing his balance.
Neji didn't wait for his opponent to get down. He made a swipe at the staff hoping to knock it down while catching and striking his opponent in mid-fall. Somehow Naruto had anticipated this, thus already leaping away and at the same time taking his weapon with him. Those that knew the blonde didn't know he was this good, as he beautifully avoided Neji's gentle fist by flipping his body like a fish out of water. He even deflected Neji's last relentless pursuit using his bow staff in mid-flight. However, just as he touches ground, his opponent never gave up. Deflecting a Hyuga palm strike doesn't mean he's safe, as Neji uses that as opportunity to switch using his other palm. Thankfully, having used the staff to knock off an attack does not mean it's an end in its motion, because there are two ends in the weapon. Thus, by continuing its spin like a propeller, Naruto struck again, trying to stop his opponent's charge by slamming his other end of his staff over the head. It's definitely an eye-opener. In just a matter of seconds the two exchanged some very advanced level skills, including the last counter. Had it been anyone else Neji's facing, they would have lost the match from the Hyuga's very first strike. Not to forget his skills in his clan art. Executing strike after strike while giving chase was something they never knew the Hyuga art can do. Hence it was amazing that he can extend his range that far. Neji is indeed the prodigy of his clan. Whereas his opponent had the foresight to see what he would do, thus got away before taking off balance. His mid-air deflection showed just how focused he was. Had it been anyone, they would have been struck down thinking they had escaped the danger.